I'll have everyone here, and it's 7 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting of Lakewood City Council for Monday, June 7th to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Bell?
Here.
Councilmember Boki?
Here.
Councilmember Brandstetter? Councilmember Brandstetter is here. Councilmember Moss?
Here.
Councilmember Farmer?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Whalen?
Present.
And Mayor Anderson?
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you. First item of business tonight is proclamations and presentations. And the first proclamation is one recognizing the legislators of the 28th and 29th district for their work on behalf of our community this last legislative session. I'd like to call on Ms. Brianna Murray and Ms. Shelley Helder of Gordon Thomas Honeywell Governmental Affairs and the 28th and 29th district legislators who could find their valuable time available tonight to join us. Ms. Murray and Ms. Helder.
Hello, I am having some visual difficulties. Hold on one moment. There we go. Thank you, Mayor. And I think Shelley is on as well, but I'll go ahead and kick us off. So we are joined this evening by Representative Bronowski, and you all should, and Senator Nobles. Folks are coming in. And I see Representative Murray Lovett there as well. I think, Murray, we can't see your video. Okay, there we go. I don't know is there anyone else in the waiting room?
I know Representative Kirby and Senator Conway were hoping to join, but I don't know. Brianna probably knows if they're in the waiting room or not.
I do not see them at the waiting room at this time, but I'll keep an eye out for them. If they do join us, we'll promote them on screen as they come in.
Great. Well, we're happy to see our 28th district legislators here tonight. I think the objective of just tonight's meeting is to recognize the work that you all did on behalf of the city of Lakewood, and specifically because it was a long session, particularly because for two of you, it was your first session, and there was a lot that was accomplished, not just for the city of Lakewood, but for the state as a whole. So I don't know, Mayor, if you had some comments or if other council members had some comments. This really isn't for Brianna and I to speak. It's for you all to have a little bit of a dialogue. I know our legislators probably have some thoughts they'd like to share as takeaways from session.
Well, we do have the proclamation that it's my honor to read. After that, I would cede the floor to our elected representatives. But I would like to thank them leading into the proclamation for their hard work. I'd also like to thank the legislators from my district, the 28th, for having 100% attendance tonight. That is most appreciated. So without further ado, I'd go into the proclamation. Whereas the city of Lakewood expresses its appreciation to the Washington State Legislature for their dedication to furthering legislative priorities and strengthening the partnership with the city of Lakewood. And whereas Senator Twina Nobles, Representative Maury Levitt, and Representative Dan Bronowski of Legislative District 28 and Senator Steve Conway, Representative Steve Kirby, and Representative Melanie Morgan, the Legislative District 29, serving the citizens of Lakewood, have worked diligently in support of the City of Lakewood's 2021 legislative agenda, and whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th districts approved a 2021-2023 but operating budget, which appropriates $621,000 to the city for the highly successful community partnership program that has successfully reduced calls for police service at Western State Hospital and created a safer environment for both the hospital and surrounding neighborhoods. And whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th districts adopted tax increment financing, an economic development tool that will allow Lakewood and all cities and towns to further advance economic development initiatives that will result in more livable communities. And whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th district approved a 2021-2023 biennial capital budget, which provides significant investments in community projects in Lakewood, including $1,258,000 for American Lake Park, ADA access improvements via the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program, the Aquatic Land Enhancement Account, and the Local and Community Project Fund. And whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th districts approved a 2021-2023 biennial capital budget, which invests $1,608,000 to the city for a multifaceted revitalization project that will improve safety and access at Wards Lake Park via the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, the Youth Athletic Facilities Program, and the Local and Community Project Fund. And whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th districts adopted a 2021-2023 biennial capital budget, which invests $350,000 to the city for Fort Steilacoom Park to replace dirt baseball infields with turf baseball infields via the Youth Athletic Fund program. And whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th district approved a 2021-2023 biennial capital budget, which invests $515,000 in the Living Access Support Alliance, LASA, Client Services Center expansion. And whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th district approved a 2021-2023 biennial capital budget, which invests $414,000 for a carriage house at Lake Wold Gardens through the Heritage Capital Grant. And whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th districts collaborated with South Sound Military and Communities Partnerships, SSMCP, South Sound Communities, and the City of Lakewood to allocate $1,400,000 from the 2021-2023 biennial capital budget towards property acquisition in the McCord Field North Clear Zone. And whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th districts collaborated with South Sound Military and Communities Partnership, South Sound Communities, and the City of Lakewood to allocate $5 million from the 2021-2023 biennial transportation budget towards the Nisqually Environmental Impact Study along the I-5 Nisqually Delta corridor. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Lakewood Council on behalf of the residents of Lakewood, tribute is hereby paid to the legislators of the 28th and 29th legislative districts, Senator Twina Knowles, Senator Steve Conway, Representative Mari Levitt, Representative Dan Bernofsky, Representative Steve Kirby, and Representative Melody Morgan for their outstanding service, dedication, and commitment to the residents of Lakewood, and urge all residents to join us in extending our appreciation for their public service proclaimed this 7th day of June 2021. Don Anderson, Mayor, signed by all members of the council. And you can be thankful that you don't have to read all the things that you already did at one time. I know it took a little more than a couple of minutes to get through all of that, but it was a busy legislative session. And I would note that in my prior life as a practicing attorney, I shied away from that many whereases. I like lists, but the list is impressive. And so thank you again on behalf of the council. Now I'd like to go through, I guess, in protocol seniority, we should probably start with Senator Knowles.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to thank the City of Lakewood and your government relations, your city lobbyists for doing a wonderful job communicating the city's needs to my office and to my colleagues. Thanks for following up with additional information, but more importantly, making sure we knew, especially as a new senator, making sure that I knew of the many ways to support the city and helping me to, ask the right questions, follow through, and maneuver the right processes so that we can ensure adequate resources were provided to the city. So I look forward to next session and communication later this interim, so I get a head start on some of those processes. But I just want to say thank you for partnering. Thanks for great leadership in the city and on your government relations team. Brianna, I don't know what else to call you all besides lobbyists.
That is what we are.
Okay.
We're the city's contract lobbyists. It's an honor. I am going to have to jump off early, so I'll just take a quick moment to say that I really appreciated how all the members of the 28th and 29th had an open virtual door this session. It really helped us collectively get good work done for the city of Lakewood, and you all deserve every bit of recognition outlined in that proclamation. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of long Zooms, and just a great amount of appreciation for always having that open virtual door.
Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Senator Nobles, and we'll move to Representative Levitt.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's great to see all of you tonight. And I too want to thank certainly Ms. Helder and Ms. Murray, but most importantly, several council members who came down to testify on behalf of the city for some of the bills that were important to the city of Lakewood, and again, most importantly, to the residents of Lakewood. So very grateful to Councilmember Branstetter. I know Councilmember Farmer testified. Not sure if anybody else did, but I know you were involved in the many of the conversations that we had on a variety of different things. There's another over $5 million that's coming to Lakewood that wasn't mentioned, but I think it's important, and that's making sure that we're removing chemicals from our water and getting over $5 million for the PFAS project for our Lakewood Water District, which serves residents and which was so important to get done this session. And unfortunately, it would have been a few more years had we not been able to do that in terms of a lawsuit to be able to make that happen. So very grateful to get that done. The other thing that I would mention, we worked hard and focused on housing. So very grateful for LASA's staff and their hard work on the human services front, addressing small businesses and small business needs. I know that the city partnered and got dollars out that was really critically needed. Housing continues to be an issue, and so we partnered on those and also supported our local school districts who really needed dollars and resources to keep them whole, to be able to serve the youth in the city of Lakewood. So very grateful to be able to get that done as well with my colleagues and with all of you as partners, and hearing what was important. And then providing our local government some flexibility with some of your dollars to be able to shore up what you need to be able to do to serve the residents of Lakewood. So happy to work together this session in a virtual session. We got a lot done, and I look forward to having some of those virtual aspects that were positive continue on in terms of remote testimony for citizens to be able to participate and be engaged in the way that they did, and certainly look forward to serving the residents and helping those who are continuing to struggle. We're not done. As COVID is lifting and the fog is lifting for many, we still have a lot of work to do to help get vaccinations out. And I know that you guys have had several different sites in Lakewood and have been encouraging that to happen. So really appreciate that work. And I see, City Manager Caulfield's in his newsletters that go out, here are the vaccination sites and here's where you can go, and really appreciate that effort also. So great to be here tonight and great to be able to serve the citizens of Lakewood.
Thank you, Representative Levitt. Now we'll move to Representative Bernowski.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the Lakewood City Council. I just wanted to recognize very briefly the good collaborative work that not only we accomplished together and the teamwork that we spent to really benefit the fine people of our city. Thanks, Shelly. Thanks, John, also for your contributions to work collaboratively with us to make sure that the needs of our residents are being met. Yeah, I mean, how can I say it any better than what my colleagues here in the 28th have said already? You know, I think you've got a really good team here representing the 28th down in Olympia, and certainly, you know, the city of Lakewood is always one of our priorities to make sure that the people that live here now can continue to live here, and will continue to do so in the future and for future generations. So thank you for everything. Thank you for your collaboration. And I look forward to this good working relationship that we share now. Look forward to having that in the near future as well. So thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. And thank you for the proclamation. It's very, very kind.
Well, thank you. And I see that we've been joined by, looks like Representative Steve Kirby hiding in the kind of angelic glow of
Conway.
You missed a proclamation, Representative Kirby, but oh no, that's Senator Conway. Excuse me. So if you if you could unmute, we've run through the proclamation, but I was giving.
I actually heard the proclamation. I apologize for this. There we are. I'll get rid of that light. But thank you for the proclamation. Always, I must say, you know, we serve many cities, our delegation, but it seems that Lakewood always thanks us for our work. You know, I must say that, you know, I wish other cities were as good as you in thanking legislators for the work they do for them. I don't think ever have I had an opportunity to hear from the Tacoma City Council, for example. And so it's great that you folks appreciate us. And I want to say it was a very unique session. Very unique. You know, I spent 104 days in my home, actually, was there only on the opening day of the session. So it was, in that sense, historical. You know, this is a virtual legislative session, and it actually improved in some ways, the ability of our constituents to visit with us, because we had, you know, more people sign in on hearings in our committees than in my memory. And, you know, of course, we've had some bills like that in the past, which have attracted a lot of attention, but every bill had a remarkable number of people who asked to speak to us. So, you know, this was a unique experiment in democracy in some ways. You know, I've been in the legislature nearly 30 years now, and I can't remember a time when as many people testified on bills as we did this year. And I say that because maybe the city councils need to use the same kind of methodology in terms of promoting public input into legislative proceedings. I think, you know, a lot of people thought maybe our democracy was compromised by this virtual session, but I don't believe it was. I think it was actually, there was some kind of interactions that we normally have that we didn't have this year, but as you can see by the result of the bills that we passed and our ability to serve your needs, the city of Lakewood, you know, the virtual session was was a real success. And I must say to you that from my perspective, what made this such a success, and I probably can say this more directly than some of the people here because I've been around a long time, was the amount of federal assistance that the legislature and the cities and the counties received because of the COVID. I've never seen a budget like the one we've had before us. And I hope some of our freshman representatives here don't think that it's going to be that way in the future, because it won't be that way in the future. In the future, you know, our budget will be much more difficult to resolve than the capital budget was or the operating budget was. And I think the big problem that we all know remains is the transportation budget. There's a lot of issues that Lakewood has in terms of that transportation budget. There will be an ongoing dialogue on that transportation budget. We may go back into special session to pass a major transportation budget. There are some issues I know that Lakewood has with respect to that. So, you know, keep that in mind that we may go back into special session at some point again. But, you know, we were in a unique situation with this COVID. And we were in a unique situation in terms of the federal help that we were getting. And I don't think anyone here, I mean, I looked at the final $59 billion operating budget. That's huge, folks. Our past budget was 53. We added $6 billion worth of spending in that budget. And the capital budget had about $3 billion. And so these were the things that drove the policy that you mentioned in your opening comments. I didn't catch all of it, but I caught some of it. But, you know, this was a very unique session, a very unique period of time, actually, because we may see more of this virtual reality impact the way we do our business. And I urge you to consider that yourselves as you work through your legislative roles as well, because you know, virtual testimony worked for the legislature, and maybe virtual testimony should work for the cities as well. So thank you, and I'm sorry I'm so far away I can't get rid of that sunlight. I am in sunlight here, so I know it's cloudy there, but it's sunlight here. So thank you for your acknowledgement. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any council member who'd like to make some additional comments before we move on? Mr. Whalen?
Just want to echo the thanks expressed in the proclamation, and I really appreciate your words, Senator Conway, about how we can perhaps do a better job ourselves of soliciting and obtaining citizen input on the lessons we've learned during the last year in COVID. So thank you all again. It's great to see you, and I look forward to meeting you or seeing you in person one of these days soon.
And Mr. Ranstetter?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I would just like to specifically thank the entire delegation, because there were bills across the spectrum of interest areas that the legislature not only looked at what needed to be done to do that, but kept in mind the fiscal impact on cities, and that the fiscal impact on cities needing to be resolved either was or things became works in progress until they could be. And that's important to us at the local level, to not to do good things, but to have the resources to be able to do them. And I appreciate that that's an element that you gave attention to as you were looking at legislation and how it would progress or will progress in the future. So I thank you for that.
Ms. Bell?
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I have not met any of you in person, but I really look forward to it. I'm battling with the sun here too, but it's illuminating, so I'm going with it. But just thank you so much for your service for Lakewood. And again, I just really look forward to meeting all of you in person soon.
Ms. Moss?
You, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to echo what has been said, but I just want to say we truly appreciate all the support you give us, and we know that you're there for us, and we're here for you too. So thank you very much.
Mr. Bulkey?
Yeah, I'd echo those comments. Thank you very much. But I'd also say that all those items on the, especially on the capital list, are really reflections of your confidence in us, and that really over the next 2 years, we're going to return that confidence and making sure that those projects get completed in a timely manner in the way that we promised you that they would get done, and within budget. So thank you for your expression of confidence in us and our abilities to get things done. And it's my hope that we can continue to perform in that way, to continue to keep your confidence in the future.
Ms. Farmer.
I too echo everything that's been said. I want to particularly call out the two-way communication and how diligent you folks were in contacting us and in facilitating any conversations that needed to happen, in facilitating the virtual testimony. I know that I testified 3 times, and that's nothing compared to all of the Zoom stuff that you guys went through every single day and night and weekends, and so thank you. It just sounds so trite, but thank you for your service to the 28th and to Lakewood, and I look forward to our partnership in the off term.
Thank you. Senator Conway.
I just neglected to say we must thank Brianna for her role in working with all of us. I mean, and Shelley now. Shelley was actually more directly involved because Brianna was out having a baby, but their help and their assistance and their diligence in overseeing what we do is so important. And I know that sometimes we get around to looking at budgets and wonder whether we should keep these people, but they carry your message to us. And I can't say how important they were. Shelley and I worked very, very hard on this military funding issue. I mean, it was never in any budget that came out of the House or the Senate. So we had to work that behind the scenes, right, to get that money. And, that's money that builds a good relationship between the South Sound military people and yourselves. So I just wanted to acknowledge their work and their great work and helping us do what we need to do to protect the city. Thank you.
Thank you. They have indeed been our boots on the ground that have given us an invaluable advantage, I would say, in communications. I had 2 final items. One is just a thought as we look. You're suggesting that it would be appropriate to continue virtual testimony, and I think that's a great idea. We've been doing it for our public comment throughout COVID, and you essentially have to change the law to be able to do that. But when you do that, one unintended consequence may be making people lobbyists who show up too much. And so you might want to consider how those integrate. I was worried about Mr. Brandstetter this session. If he showed up too many times, he was going to have to register. And there was a time in my career where I actually counted my trips to Olympia, so I didn't break the threshold. The other one is, Lakewood is a young city, but it's not that young anymore. And we're having a 25th anniversary this year. So we'd like you to, block out your calendars as on a hold on September 18th. We're going to have a celebration and details to follow. So we're going to celebrate being 25 and all the success that we think that has brought to quality of life in Lakewood, which is really our goal. So thank you for being a big part of that. And because of that, we'd like you to join us. So hopefully we'll see you in September. And with that, we move on, but thanks again. We appreciate it. In virtual applause. And hopefully see you in a few months.
Thank you.
Thanks. We now move to the Youth Council report and recognition. And first I'd call on Youth Council member Hank Jones.
Hello, good evening to Mayor Anderson and to the City Council. My name is Hank Jones, and I'll be giving my report on behalf of the Lakewood City Youth Council. This evening, we had our last meeting of the year, and Cameron, our coordinator, encouraged us all to reapply and to spread the word about Youth Council. This was my 3rd year as a member, and I'm really looking forward to applying for my 4th year. For the first half of our meeting today, we had a presentation by Lakewood's Choice. A major theme in their presentation was prevention, drug prevention. And we had many Lakewood students talk about what prevention means to them and those in their community. Many students also shared very powerful artistic stories about how prevention and addiction has impacted their lives and the lives of those around them. It was incredibly informative and very moving. We also had the long-range strategic planning manager for Lakewood, Tiffany Spear, stop by and talk to us about the funds our city is going to be receiving from the American Rescue Act. She went over how these funds can be spent and asked the Youth Council where we would like to see spending prioritized. Many of our members expressed interest in the proposed youth employment program and ways that we can support our local schools. We're all so fired up and ready to continue our work in the next school year. Thank you.
At this point, we'd like to invite youth council members in attendance to, starting with Hank, to tell us what was your favorite part of being on youth council?
My favorite part of being on youth council, it has to be all of the events that we get to not only plan, but also attend and work on. My favorite this year was, I forget the exact name of it, but it was around Christmas time. And we had a lot of families in Lakewood driving through the town center, and we got to wave and we got to hand out supplies. And it was just a really fun experience. And so definitely being able to plan and attend community events is my favorite part of being a member of the Lakewood Youth Council.
Thank you. Now we'll go to Josephine Kaiser. What was your favorite part?
I just about finished my 2nd year at council, and I really liked the adaptive and flexible experience. There's been quite a bunch of up and downs. I was here originally for when everything was going really smoothly, and then I just really admired the way we were able to just keep pushing forward and still be able to do business effectively without kind of being bouldered or blocked with our capabilities. I appreciate the recognition and the opportunities that are presented to me. I've learned about so many different things that I never would have learned about without the help of youth council. And I'm really amazed at how far my influence and the influence of council was able to share. And I've learned so much more about what you guys do. And I recognize how hard you work and how hard you work just to keep the city going. It's truly amazing.
And next up is Ariadne Esperon. Could you tell us what your favorite part of youth council was this year?
Hi. My name's Ariani. I would say my favorite part about being here was probably just the people. I got to meet so many new people, including just some of the adults that are in charge of a lot of the city events. Everyone was so kind to me, just telling me about the community, what was important to them. I got to be in the art committee and got to learn about what people wanted, what represented the community really, and what people were looking for to represent the community. And that was so cool. That was my favorite part.
Great, thanks for sharing. Next, we'll go to Angel Lee.
Good afternoon. I believe that one of my favorite things about being a member of Youth Council was agreeing with Hank, the reverse holiday parade, where we got to create new relations with former Youth Council members, new ones, and community members alike. And I believe that that was really a fulfilling experience, especially during these COVID times where we don't have as much human interaction as we would have. And it was a beautiful experience.
Thank you. Kara Buckmaster, what was your favorite part?
My favorite part would have to be the reverse parade and meeting all the people, because meeting people can be fun sometimes. And I also got to interact with that's what I was saying, with a bunch of other people. And at the parade, I got to make a bunch of people smile. So that was fun.
And last but not least, we have Brandon Elliott.
Hi. My favorite part about Youth Council definitely has been giving presentations to council. I enjoy whenever I have to prepare presenting you, even though it's kind of nerve-wracking because I look up to all of you. It was really nice to get that experience talking more publicly. And also I've really enjoyed being on the Lakewood Promise Advisory Board and seeing how hard people in our community work for us. I think that's great about Youth Council.
Well, we certainly couldn't tell from the confidence that you folks have displayed that's really beyond your years. And we appreciate all that you have done in this strange environment to contribute to your community. You've really got a head start on being a public servant, whether you're in private enterprise, work for the government, work for yourself, go with a nonprofit route. I think and I hope that the taste of helping those in your community creates an appetite for that in the future. And you've done a great job, and we hope to see many, if not all of you next year. So
thank you.
Thanks again. I would note that we're currently accepting applications for the 2021-22 Youth Council, and you can visit the city's website or contact the city clerk for more information. Thanks a lot. We now will move on keeping on the theme of youth to the Clover Park School District report with Clover Park School Board President Marty Schaefer.
Thank you for reconnecting me, whoever did that. I appreciate being able to be called in. So I want to say thank you, Mayor Anderson, Deputy Mayor Whalen, and amazing and distinguished City Council members. As we hear you give thanks to those who have served us at the state level, I hope you understand how much we appreciate what you do here locally. We love collaborating with you. You guys are amazing partners, and your service and your commitment to our community is very meaningful to us. It's meaningful to me. It's meaningful to our school board. And so I also recognize tonight the impact that it has on our students. And so it was so great, again, to hear from the Youth Council. And I so much appreciated, as you said, Mayor, just their poise and ability to articulate as they're giving a presentation. In my studies, one of the most frightening things for a human or an individual is to do a public speak of any nature. And they all just shared great insights, and they did it with poise as well. So it just shows you how well we are investing in and receiving from our amazing students. So students, what a great job that you did. Thank you for representing our community so well. And just to kind of follow that theme, we are excited that we are having our class of 21 graduations, yes, in person on June 10th and 11th for Clover Park will be at 4 p.m. on the 10th, and Lakes will be at 7 p.m. at Tacoma Dome. And then we have on June 11th, Open Doors at 3 and Harrison Prep at 6. And just so that everybody's aware, the district will live stream our graduations on our YouTube channel, and recordings will also be saved there. And we invite you to join us in celebrating the remarkable achievements of these students in one of the most difficult learning years since I've been aware of public education. I also want to acknowledge that there's going to be the United States calls it learning recovery. We are also acknowledging that there's an opportunity for summer enrichment and credit retrieval programs for students. It's going to be free this year. The district's offering these programs for students in grades all the way K through 12. And so there are 2-week sessions that are going to be held in person at various locations across the district, and along with credit retrieval options. And these will actually begin June 21st. So that's kind of tough when school's over on the 16th, and then you run right into summer enrichment just a week later. But it really is important for our students to be able to accelerate their achievement. And so we're offering these programs. Middle and high school students can still register online, and elementary enrollment, unfortunately, is already now closed. You know, when we offer these types of programs, we do not want to neglect our amazing employees who make it possible. And so we had a celebration this year, as we do each year, for the Employee of the Year. And I just want to acknowledge that our classified employee was Cheryl Ann McMahon, Head Secretary of Rainier Elementary School. So wonderful. Thank you, Cheryl Ann. And then a certificated bracket, we have Bree Giove, the Athletic Director at Clover Park High School. So again, congratulations. And then our Administrative Employee of the Year was Paula Gason, who's principal at Beechwood Elementary School. And so we have a video honoring all nominees and winners, and it's posted on our YouTube channel. But as you know, City Council, it takes everybody working together to create a culture of learning. And so I'm so grateful for each one of these individuals who've led out so well. On some not so enjoyable news, I'd acknowledge that our Clover Park School District experienced a temporary system outage due to a malware cyber event, I guess they call it, that happened. Schools are operating on a regular schedule, and we're working with a third-party cybersecurity experts to complete an investigation that we're required to do, just to determine the full nature and the scope of the event. It's an ongoing investigation, and we really don't have specific information that we can share at this time, but we do want you to know that the event impacted some personal information, and if we determine that it was of a highly personal nature, then we'll move as quickly as possible to notify all individuals, and the investigation is going on right now. Our district does have a temporary website, and so it's at cpsd.cloverpark.k12.wa.us. And so obviously we've had to make some changes with our website. The good news is that we are already planning a website reconstruction for the fall anyway. So the redesign is underway, and it's just now being expedited, but I can guarantee you, you don't want to have to go through this to create your new website. It's not any fun for anyone. Our district, we heard from the reports from the legislators about vaccine sites. Well, there's 3 district locations are going to serve as a backdrop for individuals 12 and over to receive their second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. So Tuesday, June 8th, Student Services Center, 11 to 4. Wednesday, June 16th, Harrison Prep and Thomas Middle Schools, 9 to noon. And then I just want you to know that we're going to have coordinated transportation will be provided for students. And individuals who receive their first dose at a previous event will be contacted by the Health Department of Emergency Management to schedule their second dose at any one of these ongoing events as well. I want to encourage everyone, if you haven't seen it yet, to watch Clover Park High School's virtual Arlington Project ceremony. You know, this is a event that's been created through Clover Park High School, and it is of a national awareness. It is such a significant act of honoring our military that has had a very far-reaching impact and footprint across the United States. It actually is an opportunity for us to use our front lawn to take individually named markers for the nearly 7,000 fallen from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so we'll return being able to do that in person next spring, but right now you'll be able to go onto that YouTube channel and to see the Arlington Project ceremony. So thank you to each individual Covert Park High School for your amazing commitment to honor our military heroes. Just grateful for that. Also, a little bit of opportunity to plug ourselves here. We have kindergarten registration for fall 2021-22 is now open. And so our Clover Park elementary schools are registering new kindergartners. And you'll want to register your child by completing online registration from our new district website. And so to begin kindergarten, I just want to remind everybody that you have to be 5 years old on or before August 31st. And so the child's birth certificate and immunization records are required for registration as well. In our ability to serve our students in City Council, we have worked together to do our part to make sure that Lakewood is an amazing environment for each and all of our children, not just our students. And I'm very appreciative of that. I want to acknowledge that it really requires all of us working together to be able to have a significant impact on our children and on our community. And so as our children go, as our future go, as our families go, our children's go, and we've really got to reach out and continue to make this beautiful investment in our children. And one of the things that we're doing is that we're giving meals. And so the district is serving free meals to all children ages 18 and younger through the summer. So free daily meals are going to be available to students from their school when they're on site, or from numerous meal distribution locations on days that they're learning virtually from home. And families can also order weekly meals on Fridays to pick up on Tuesday or Wednesday the following week in those meal locations, and additional information are on the website. So it's important for us to continue to make sure that we give each and every one of our students an opportunity to have a good meal. That is really the main information that I think I would share for the City Council at this time. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to see if I can respond to them at this time.
Any questions from council? I don't see any. Thanks for bringing us up to speed. And it's wonderful to hear that this year's graduates can go to graduation. So,
thank you, everybody.
Thanks for the update tonight. We now move to the public comment portion of our agenda. This is when public comments are accepted by mail, email, or by live virtual comments. Send comments in advance by mail or email to Brianna Schumacher, City Clerk, at 6000 Main Street, Southwest, Lakewood, Washington, 98499, or B. Schumacher at cityoflakewood.us. Comments received up to 1 hour before the meeting have been provided to the City Council electronically. Madam Clerk, has anyone provided written comments this evening?
Mayor Anderson, we have received no written comments.
That doesn't preclude you from participating. You may submit a virtual comment if you would like, but you will need to join the Zoom meeting as an attendee by calling the telephone number 1-253-215-8782 as it appears on the screen, and entering the meeting ID 868-7263-2373, or visiting zoom.us and entering the meeting ID 868-7263-2373. Upon entering the meeting, please enter your name or other chosen identifier and use the raised hand function to be called upon. When you are unmuted, please provide your name and city of residence. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Once your turn at public comment is completed, the Zoom function will still allow you to raise your hand. However, You will not be called on during the duration of the meeting, and your microphone will be muted except for the 3-minute period upon which when you are called upon. I would note that we have a public hearing tonight. If you would like to comment at the public hearing on the comprehensive plan amendments, to be on the record, you will have an opportunity at that point to follow through the same procedures and comment on the record. During public comment period, which is now, you may speak to any subject of pertinence to the city council. So check if I have any virtual hands up. The first one is identified by a telephone number ending in 2173. Good evening. You're on. But we don't hear anything. Telephone number 2173. You appear to be unmuted. If you leave your hand up, we'll come back to you. We'll move to Mr. Dennis Haugen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Dennis Haugen, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, formerly of Lakewood, Washington. For at least 5 years, I've watched news on 2 televisions at the same time. And what I'm always looking for is who brings up the relevant news and who brings up the nothing that's relevant. And what I've learned that when I'm talking to people, about half the people understand what I'm talking about, and the other half of the people haven't a clue what I'm talking about. But I think here's some hard facts. Trump secured the southern border to the highest level ever. Biden, on the other hand, promised open borders and gathered people at the border by the thousands. Those two categories now are the catch and release, which are thousands, and the gotaway, which are thousands. And the gotaway is where the cartel works. And the cartel now is overtly advertising for drivers with the amount of money to be paid to deliver hazardous materials. Fentanyl is a hazardous material. The cartel is advertising for that. And that puts a very serious situation for the roads, sidewalks, every road that's built, because they won't just stick to one hazardous material. And when they get in an accident or something, there won't be any stickers on the side saying fentanyl or any other chemical. It'll probably be spread all over the road. There won't be any manifest like from the trucker that tells what's on the truck when it gets in an accident. So it puts great danger over every road, especially in those liberal states that refuse to recognize the reality. On the other hand, one of the reasons it's so difficult and people can't speak, of course, is this nasty nature of the cancel culture, which I noticed that in your retreat, you put inclusiveness, equity, and what's the other one? Whatever. That's a code word for reverse racism. That little word equity in there means you are getting paid too much money. Everybody should be paid the same, according to this philosophy. And it's called parents and teachers and legislators across the nation to start acting. Thank you.
Next up is Christina Minetti. Good evening. You're unmuted. Ms. Minetti? We are unable to hear you, but I'll come back to you if you leave your hand up. Next is Matt McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy. You appear to be unmuted. And he went away. Well, yeah, Mr. McCarthy, you're up. We aren't getting any audio. Is your, you have a microphone on? So, Mr. McCarthy, we're not getting any audio. If you're on the app, go down to the lower right-hand corner. There may be a way to turn on the volume. If that doesn't work, I suggest you call that telephone number that we gave earlier, which is 253-215-8782. It's 215-8782. And enter the meeting code 868-7263-2373. That's 868-7263-2373. Regret that we're unable to connect at this time. If you leave your hand up, we'll come back and try again, or you can call in. Next is Julian Wheeler, excuse me. Julian?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I was the attendee formerly known as 2173, and it seems that my phone wasn't getting a connection to speak. Anyway, Julian Wheeler, resident Lakewood, chair of the Pierce County Accessible Communities Advisory Committee. And just want to thank the mayor and the council for providing this ability to access online. And also wanted to acknowledge the work of my delegation from the 29th, as well as those I know from the 28th. And also, of course, to acknowledge some commemorations like D-Day yesterday, Pride Month, and next month is July, which will be the anniversary month of the Americans with Disabilities Act, when it was signed in 1990 by President George H.W. Bush. I just want to invite you to our next regular session of the Pierce County ACAC. It's going to be on Tuesday, July 13th. It's going to be at 9 o'clock in the morning, after what I expect would be the mayor's coffee clutch. But it's going to be on Zoom, 9 o'clock in the morning, and we help fund or expedite funds for accessibility projects. For example, anything that was proposed for the comp plan with an emphasis on accessibility, we could help with that, but it would take initiative by a proponent to come to us for consideration. We do have a record of success. Check out the equine horse ramp at the Pierce County Fairgrounds in Graham. It helps people, especially young people. And I also want to thank the Senator Conway and one of the youth speakers on mentioning, these issues, disability rights, as well as accessibility. And as long as I have the floor, I think that I would not be fully advancing the principles of disability rights and accessibility by going back and reiterating the fact that I'm able to attend remotely. I know that when the end of this pandemic comes, as it may inevitably, I would like to, and when the chambers reopen and council members and audience members and staff gather in person, I would like to beg that a remote attendance option remain retained, because this has really helped increase accessibility, although prefaced by the tragedy of COVID. I want to ask that we continue remote attendance, as it helps a lot of people. When things work for people with disabilities, it actually works for everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. And I don't know, is the coffee class tomorrow morning online or in person? I just thought I'd leave with that question. Thank you very much.
It's online. Coffee with the
Okay, good.
Mayor is 7:30 a.m. on the web. The next person up is Gail Sklar. You might check to see if you're muted on your end. We'll unmute you on ours. It's showing that you're muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I really didn't expect to speak. I didn't click on raise my hand, but apparently I accidentally did. But I have a question as to when were the ordinance concerning land stripping changed in Lakewood?
Well, this is a time for public comment.
Well, that's
not a
I
question.
apologize. I did not expect to click on at this point, and I do apologize humbly. Thank you.
So if you email the city manager, Jay Caulfield at cityoflakewood.us, we'll get a response to your questions. Go back to Ms. Minetti.
Hello.
Good evening. We can hear you.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. This is Christina Minetti. And I want to say thank you for giving us the chance to comment on the zoning tonight, or the amendments to the zoning. I wanted to comment on the Springbrook zoning change. My name is Christina Minetti. As I said, I've lived in Lakewood since 1971, so I've been watching its development for quite some time. I wanted to say that the area of Springbrook is really unsuitable for industrial zoning for a number of reasons. It's a residential area, or it has been. There are apartment complexes that would be surrounded by warehouses, and what if warehouses don't continue to be built, right? The apartments will remain and they'll be surrounded by warehouses, and it'll be a disaster, right? So although there's currently pressure to quickly monetize properties now that there's a warehouse boom, there's no guarantee that these warehouses will be needed in perpetuity.
Your sound
When
is.
the land is destroyed by having been turned into warehouses. Oh, what? Hello?
I just wanted to inform you that your sound is fading in and out. Okay, so.
Oh, no. Oh, gosh. I'm sorry. Let's see. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that Lakewood should continue to be a level 5 for Port of Tacoma. There are also many warehouses already built that are empty. For example, the humongous one that was built where the flea market stood, it has for lease signs on it now. There's another warehouse on that same road that's also for lease, and I'm sure we could find others as well. Why aren't we using these before destroying woodland in residential neighborhoods? What will be needed is more residential housing. And of this, there can be no doubt, as we are already seeing climate refugees. I had some at my own house buying some cabinets from me. They came from Louisiana because they couldn't stand living there anymore. So people will be coming here, and then we need more houses and not warehouses. The presence of many mature Gary oaks in the area of Springbrook also make it completely unsuitable for any development that does not take their protection into account, industrial or residential. So this is also something that's related to the energy and climate change chapter that you're also discussing tonight, I think is an amendment. The climate change chapter mentions the importance of trees in the sequestration of carbon, which is, of course, of paramount importance now. So I'm sure other people can talk more about this, but with my colleagues, I would be glad to discuss with you the options for protecting the oaks and maximizing their many benefits to Lakewood, not only in terms of their critical sequestration of carbon, but also their potential for attracting tourists far and near, importance to the city's tree canopy, a topic that's getting a lot of attention in other American cities now, the well-being of Lakewood's people and animals, and of course, their ever important aesthetic contributions to this wooded city on the lakes. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
We now move to Hee-Jae Kwon. Hee-Jae, you appear to be muted.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can, yes.
Okay.
You're up.
Oh, all right, thank you. So I'd like to ask that how people can have access to tree preservation audience, and is there any newsletter that we can access or website or any other that information that we can just have access to? That is my question. Thank you.
Could you repeat that, please? And we'll see if staff can get back to you on.
So my question is that as for the oak trees cutting and building new warehouses, then I want to know that is there any tree preservation ordinance or rules that we can have access to, or in any newsletters or website or any papers that we can have access to? That is my question.
Okay, I'll direct you again, like before, to the city manager, Jay Caulfield at cityoflakewood.us, and attempt to get back to you. Next up is Jenny Jones.
You hear me now?
Yes, you're up.
Okay, yeah, I'm another voice for our native oaks, Gary Oaks, which I live in Southgate neighborhood, which is surrounded by industrial truck depots. The question is, do you want Lakewood to become an area of concrete and asphalt and no trees and no green? Gary Oaks are protected in Washington state. And yet in my neighborhood, I know they've been chopping down trees without any thought that this tree is old, it's alive, and it contributes probably more than anything we have that's living on the screen. Okay, that includes all the human beings. So we need to protect our trees here, and we need to get out the voice, and perhaps a Gary Oak would be a nice symbol for, as Christine Minetti said, the lake that is surrounded by green that was originally this area. Thank you very much. And consider protecting those things that have no voice. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Matt McCarthy. You appear to be unmuted. Mr. McCarthy, you're up. Mr. McCarthy, we cannot hear you. Give you a little bit more time here to see if we can iron out the technical difficulties from your end, but you're unmuted on ours. We can see you now without volume.
Hello. Hello.
There we are. We briefly had some
Hello?
sound.
Hello. Okay. Well, I want to talk about Springbrook. That you guys are rezoned it from into a commercial area, right? Is that correct? For the building of a warehouse. And I walked that area and also read the environmental report. I don't know who's filling out your environmental report, but it's not accurate. There is not lots of blackberries there. There is ivy on some of the trees, but it's not up into the crown of the trees. And it's a job to get rid of it, but it's not that bad. There's also 114 trees on that piece of property, not, I think your report said 56, something like that, right? And also, with the flea market, you got rid of the flea market to build a warehouse, and that warehouse is now empty. There's plenty of properties all around Lakewood that could be used, if you want to build another warehouse. I just don't really understand why in that area. And then there was another area that got the go-ahead to, where there was horses there and there was a lot of trees, and they cut that down and made, they're going to, I guess, build a warehouse there as well. So I'm just saying, I don't think that the benefit for the people, it seems like there's a lot of benefit for corporations and businesses and stuff, but I don't see the people of Lakewood being served by any of these projects. And, in the long term, especially because now, you're saying you want to do something about climate change and carbon sequestration. And what are you doing? You're cutting down a bunch of trees. So, and the trees, if you look around the neighborhoods, they're going. Like every day or every week, you'll see more and more trees cut down. And in the long term, we should be thinking about houses for people. People are going to continue to move here. It has to be a plan to make a good, good quality of life. And I think that's more important than warehouses, and especially when there's empty warehouses and there's a lot of land that is, it's basically vacant, abandoned, no trees. I just don't really understand the wisdom of changing that zoning. I mean, if anything, put houses in there, because you got apartment buildings on both sides of that piece of property, and just seems like it's going to really impact those people. You're going to have trucks coming in and out all the time, and that's all I wanted to say. So thanks.
Let's see, Madam Clerk.
Glad we finally got the audio.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, help me out here. I think we may have a hand up that's already spoken. I don't believe Ms. Phelan has, so we'll go to Francis Phelan next.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I just wanted to voice my opinion. My name is Fran Phelan. I live in Lakewood here in the Clovercrest Southwest, Clovercrest Drive. And my concern is on the Gary Oaks. If I, as a private citizen, am forbidden to take down any of my Gary Oaks because it is a protected tree, what is the basis on which the code or the rezoning was allowed to allow a corporation to come in and destroy 110 to 118 trees? And I have to agree with a lot of the other individuals who have spoken tonight that trees filter the air. It makes it better for us living here. And if we take down all the trees and put in a parking lot, eventually we're going to be sorry for what we've done, because trees take longer to grow. Those trees have to be at least 100 years old. And to just rip them all down to put in another warehouse doesn't make any sense to me. So that's my 2 cents. I just was wondering why, if there's a law and a protection for a person, a tree, an animal, it should go across the board. It shouldn't be one thing for the private citizen and one thing for the corporation. To me, that just isn't fair. So that's my 2 cents.
Move to Jenna Lee.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello, so my name is Jenna Lee. I live in Seattle. I am a former resident of University Place and have spent many an evening in Lakewood. I'm a current student at the University of Washington School of Law. So firstly, thank you, Mayor, and thank you all of our representatives for joining this meeting and organizing this platform. I would also like to echo the discussions that the other members of the public have started regarding the Gary Oaks. So I also have concerns about this Springbrook zoning change. As Ms. Minetti stated, this is a residential area, and as such, the health and families that live here, the health of the families that live here is critical. So a large array of studies over the years have shown that in addition to producing oxygen and sequestering carbon, sequestering carbon dioxide, as people understand, research suggests that the trees specifically lead to mental health boosts and lead to crime reduction. So studies over the years have shown that rates of anxiety, fatigue, hostility, and depression are increased by spending time among trees. And studies also suggest that trees can promote immune boosts, lower blood pressure, and lower cortisol levels. I know fully that you all care deeply for the safety of your communities in Lakewood and beyond. And even after controlling for factors such as poverty, trees have been shown to lower rates of assaults, narcotic crimes, and robbery. I also want to note that these studies, although some of them have looked at greenery in particular, many have looked specifically at trees. So it's not just grasslands and shrubs that promote all of these public goods, it's specifically trees. These Gary Oaks, as I understand it, are critically important for a vast array of wildlife that live there. They provide canopy cover and they provide just critical habitat, but they're also just historically important trees that make the city of Lakewood truly unique. And I'd like to stress that because, I mean, I understand that you all care so deeply about this community, and this is really a matter that I think is a matter, it's critical to public goods, to public health, especially to mental health, but also just physical health in general. Thank you for your patience in listening to all of this.
Mayor Anderson, next we have a James Dunlop who's raised their hand to speak.
Excuse me, I was muted. I called on James Dunlap, but I was muted. I apologize. Mr. Dunlap.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just want to continue on the theme of the Gary Oaks, which arguably they are Lakewood's most important natural feature. Gary Oaks are especially important because, you know, they're a huge tree that sequester large amounts of carbon. And as the city's own energy and climate change chapter points out, this is of paramount importance now. And I think you say today, all of the city's forested areas and freshwater inland wetlands are currently protected or conserved through the city's open space policies, the Shoreline Master Programme and development regulations, including a tree preservation ordinance. The city has not typically taken in consideration the carbon sequestration benefit of these resources. However, in its decision-making process, so you make it clear that this is important. And to get an idea about how this works, David Tallamy in 2021, he wrote a book on the nature of oaks, and he said that perhaps the most timely and critically important ecosystem service delivered every day by oaks is carbon sequestration. Like all plants, oaks fix atmospheric carbon dioxide, CO2, through photosynthesis and store its carbon in their tissues. In fact, about half of the plant's dry weight comes from carbon. For an average oak tree, this amounts to tons and tons of carbon. The more densely a plant's cells are packed together, the more carbon it can store. Oak contributions to below ground carbon sequestration are also noteworthy. Like oak tissues above the ground, oak root systems are massive and built from carbon. But what makes oaks a particularly valuable tool in our fight against climate change is their relationship with mycorrhizal fungi, which make copious amounts of carbon-rich glomalin. And this fungi deposit glomalin into the soil surrounding oak trees throughout the life of the tree. And every pound of glomalin produced by oak mycorrhizae is a pound of carbon, no longer warming the atmosphere. And glomalin remains in the soil for hundreds, if not thousands of years. He goes on to explain why this is superior to fast-growing but short-lived trees, which have no sustained effect on the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. So, you might think, well, you can just cut down a Gary oak and just replace it with a young tree, but it's not really the same because it takes, these young trees are not really having any impact, and it can take centuries for you to see the full result. So given that Lakewood recognizes the role of trees in carbon sequestration, it's ironic that the city is preparing to permit the cutting down of 114 Gary oak trees to make way for warehouses. Replacing the oaks with young trees is simply not going to compensate for the loss of carbon sequestration, as I've just said. I should also say that, I'm just finishing up here, that facing the reality of climate change, Lakewood cannot rely on its conifers. They are already being stressed by a prolonged drought. Some are dying, along with many cedars and true firs, and many may soon start dying. Gary oaks, by contrast, are drought and even fire resistant, and it is their deep root system that gives them the advantage. I've only lived in Lakewood since 2012, and many of you have lived here much longer. But I'm sure we all recognize how precious the city's Gary oaks are. Their preservation is not just about climate sequestration, but it is about the maintenance of an entire ecosystem and the preservation of the city's natural and human heritage. Thank you for hearing me out.
Next up is Ricky McGee.
Ricky McGee.
Hello, can you hear me? I've heard a lot of eloquent arguments this evening from very articulate citizens. I probably won't be as articulate, but I'd like to comment particularly on the rezoning. My priorities are quality of life, of air and water specifically. I have an air monitor on my home, and I can see the change in air quality over time, fire or no fire. I also understand how our water basin recharges. My concern about the rezoning involves several different aspects, including the Gary Oak, destruction of habitat, but also how the rezoned area in the Springbrook area is close to Clover Creek, which is of course a big component, the main component of our watershed and water source. I also am concerned about its location, I believe, in the 100-year floodplain, which from what I heard in a recent presentation from the Planning Commission is probably out of date as it has been recorded with GS, the federal government. I'm concerned about those things, but I'm also concerned about how our water is getting recharged in this area. I attended a Lakewood Water open forum last week, the week before. I asked them what their biggest challenge is as a water company. You know what they said? Impervious surface. There is so much toxin going in from roadways and surfaces into our bodies of water. As you heard earlier, Mari Levitt, $5 million to treat the PFASs. We need to preserve open land so that we can recharge and filtrate our system the way nature does it best. And trees are a big part of that. Thank you very much for listening to us tonight. I hope you are hearing us.
So all the people who've indicated they wish to speak at public comment, and due to time, I'm going to terminate the public comment section now, and it will be closed. And we'll move to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
A, approval of the minutes of the City Council study session of May 10th, 2021. B, approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of May 17th, 2021. C, approval of the minutes of the City Council retreat of May 22nd, 2021. D, approval of the minutes of the City Council study session of May 24th, 2021. E, approval of claims vouchers in the amount of $1,895,076.69 for the period of April 16th, 2021 through May 14th, 2021. F, approval of payroll checks in the amount of $2,336,281.27 for the period of April 16th, 2021 through May 15th, 2021. G, motion number 2021-33, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Sierra Santa Fe Corp. in the amount of $236,704.93 for the construction of the 2021 chip seal program. H, motion number 2021-34, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Central Paving LLC in the amount of $224,475 for the construction of the 2021 roadway patching program. I, motion number 2021-35, reappointing Ellie Wilson to serve on the Lakewoods Promise Advisory Board through May 21st, 2024. And J, items filed in the office of the City Clerk. 1, Landmarks and Heritage Advisory Board meeting minutes of April 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. Is there any item which any member of the council wishes to have removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Ms. Farmer, seconded by Mr. Volkey, that we adopt the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Will all in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. We now move to public hearings and appeals. Madam Clerk.
This is the date set for a public hearing on the 2021 Comprehensive Plan amendments.
And for this, we'll call on Planning Manager Tiffany Spear. For an overview.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tiffany Spear, long-range planning manager for the city. I'm going to walk through a very brief PowerPoint just to reorient everyone to what is being considered as part of this package for the public hearing comment. So. This process began last July. There was a call for potential amendments, which the council then considered, took it through the Planning Commission, excuse me, and then February of this year, there was a second resolution adopted following a December resolution by City Council to formalize and finalize the docket that was reviewed this spring by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission forwarded its recommendation on all of the proposed amendments to the Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulations on May 5th. The council held a study session on May 24th, and this evening is the public hearing. As of right now, a week from tonight will be a second study session to discuss comprehensive plan amendments and any public hearing comments that you receive. And then at this point, June 21st would be the day that the council might take action on the comprehensive plan docket. The first amendment is 2021-01, which is the adoption of a brand new energy and climate change chapter, which would replace the current sustainability chapter in the comprehensive plan. The recommendation from the Planning Commission was to adopt this and then allow that in the next comprehensive plan amendment cycle, the Planning Commission would go into and dive a little deeper into the proposed implementation measures and bring you back a recommendation about how to prioritize those in the next comp plan cycle. 2021-02 is the rezoning of, or excuse me, the recognition of the rezoning that's already occurred for 19 parcels in the Springbrook area. If you recall, last year, the City Council took action to rezone 19 parcels north of Clover Creek into Industrial Business Park. And so some of the comments that you just heard in the public comment section actually were referring to this as if this had not happened yet. It did last year. What's happening with this amendment is that it's simply taking the comprehensive plan and reflecting what was already done last year through council action. 2021-03 is just recognition and editing of the comprehensive plan to recognize that the legacy plan was adopted in 2020 by the city. 04 is looking at allowing 2 and 3 family detached or attached family homes in the R1 through R4 zones, and then allowing multifamily of 4 or more units in the MR1 and MR2 zones. And in addition to this, adding some additional recognition of missing middle housing and other types of housing programs that the city has right now to promote affordable housing, both new and preservation of existing. 05 is the, at the time it was presented to you last fall, the hope was to update the county, or sorry, the city's comprehensive plan to recognize adoption of the new master plan for Western State Hospital. But since the adoption of the, or excuse me, the acceptance of the comments on this plan didn't come back to city until just a few weeks ago, the recommendation from the Planning Commission is to continue this amendment to next year's comprehensive plan amendment cycle. 06 is to simply recognize in the comprehensive plan once more the fact that now 2 sub-area plans have been adopted, downtown and Lakewood Station sub-areas. Number 8 is a series of rezones within the Tillicum area. One set of parcels being rezoned or recommended for rezone are near the Berkeley interchange. And then there are several more that are part of a Habitat for Humanity project, which is kind of the tail end of an abatement project and a demolition of abandoned properties in the Tillicum area. The third part to this amendment would be conducting a review of the 2011 Tillicum neighborhood plan and relevant text within the comprehensive plan for any needed updates. 09 is a one phrase change within the land use policy 18.5, recognizing that community renewal areas are not used in the city, so remove that from the comp plan language. Amendment 10 is to just recognize within 18A, Chapter 40, the fact that these various water supply facilities are allowed in the city. This was an error from a few years ago with the Title 18A comprehensive update. And the final amendment is number 11. That is the update to allowing religious organizations to host homeless encampments as directed under RCW 35A.22.360. This is something that is simply referring in our code to state statute. So as amendments might be made by the state legislature going forward, the city code will still be accurate. It'll just be reflective of those changes by reference. So the last thing I'll say, Mr. Mayor, is as I mentioned in the public comments that you just received, were a number of commenters regarding what sounded like what our proposed amendments 2021-01, that new energy and climate change chapter, and also 2021-02, which is the rezoning that happened last year in Springbrook. So all of those comments we will respond to within the staff report you will receive for next Monday night's study session. But again, just to clarify, the rezone that many commented on has already happened. 2021-02 is simply to recognize that in the comprehensive plan. So with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So now we'll move to the public testimony. Madam Clerk, has anything been submitted to the council in writing prior to the hearing?
Mayor Anderson, we received 4 comments in advance written that were provided to the city council. Those comments were received from Ricky McGee, Christina Minetti, the Oak Harbor Gary Oak Society, and the Master Builders Association.
So we'll incorporate those in the record of the hearing. And now we'll move to virtual testimony. If you would like to provide live public testimony on this public hearing, you will need to join the Zoom meeting as an attendee by calling the telephone number 1-253-215-8782 as shown on the screen and entering the ID number shown on the screen, 868-7263-2373, or via the Zoom app, zoom.us/join. Enter the meeting ID 868-7263-2373. Upon entering the meeting, please enter your name or other chosen identifier and use the raise hand feature to be called upon. When you are unmuted, please provide your name and city of residence, such as Paul Volpe, Lakewood, Washington. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Outside of the public hearing, 3 minutes. All attendees on Zoom will continue to have the ability to virtually raise their hand for the duration of the meeting. However, you will not be acknowledged and your microphone will remain muted except for the time allotted for you to speak. I would like to indicate that this is much like the public comment that we had earlier. However, testimony is limited to testimony on the subject of the 2021 comprehensive plan amendments. And I'll go to the attendees. First person with the hand raised is Dennis Howland.
Okay, that should be, hear me?
Yes.
Dennis Haugen, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A couple items in there. One of the items is direction towards climate change. The city burned down in California, if you remember. And President Trump brought to light that we don't seem to be managing the forests. And a lot of that is out of your jurisdiction, but that doesn't mean you can't push for it. It's called fire strips. They've been necessary for, well, my grandfather over 100 years ago. You have to manage forests. And a guy told me that's the difference between preservation and conservation. That's not being done, and people are blaming the fires on climate change. But that's politics. Now, on the other side of this coin, you're providing for a growth in homelessness. Maybe you need to look deeply into what causes homelessness. The common thing is, oh, it must be mental illness. Fentanyl, if you ever get high on it.
Mr. Haugen, this is a hearing on the 2021 comprehensive plan. Please limit your comments to that subject.
Well, I was trying to get to what another cause for homelessness. It's when people's brains get burned out and they can no longer function. So then that gets back to fight the drugs. See, you're trying to grow this homeless problem by providing for it. You're not reversing it. You're causing it. You're providing for it. We don't have to provide for it. There's a way to reduce, not eliminate homelessness, but there's a way to reduce it dramatically. And unfortunately, it's probably just politics and opinion that gets in the way. Thank you.
Next is Christina Minetti.
Hello, this is Christina.
Minetti, we have your written testimony.
Right. But I just wanted to say that the rezoning to industrial there, and it involved a change to the tree preservation code, which essentially gave free hand to destroy the trees rather than preserve them. So, rezoning it to industrial really didn't take into account the fact that there are all those trees there, and that it's simply not appropriate to have it as an industrially zoned area. So what I would propose is that you roll back the zoning back to residential and put a stop to any further development there, because it simply impacts the trees and the people, the environment, the air. Everything is negatively impacted by turning in a chunk of Lakewood into an industrial park. So that's all I want to say, but I really appreciate your time and attention today, and thank you very much.
I don't see any other hands raised to testify at the public hearing. Is there anyone else? Jenna Lee. Ms. Lee, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so I'm from Seattle, as I've said. I just wanted to respond to the previous comment regarding housing. So I see that you have, as a city, made a variety of accommodations, for instance, transitory accommodations, accessory dwelling units, missing middle housing. I think this is excellent. I want to commend all of you for your tireless work in this area. I believe that the evidence shows that causes of homelessness are very, very nuanced, and it can't be boiled down to a single issue. And I think just by taking these steps forward and making sure that housing is something that people can have access to, regardless of their history, and their situations, which obviously are complex. Yeah, I just wanted to commend you all and thank you for all of the service. That's it.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else who's raised their hand to testify on the comprehensive plan amendments. Does anyone else wish to participate in the public hearing by testifying on the 2021 comprehensive plan amendments? Please raise your virtual hand. Seeing none. Going a third time. I declare the public hearing closed. Thank you for your participation. Now move to resolutions. Resolution number 2021-08. Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2021-08, adopting the 6-year 2022 through 2027 Comprehensive Transportation Improvement Program.
For this, we have Capital Projects Manager Ted Hill.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, Ted Hill, Capital Programs Manager. The city is finally at the final step for this process to update its 6-year comprehensive transportation improvement program for the 2022 through 2027. Updating the program is an annual process required by statute, meant to assure continued consistency with comprehensive planning goals and to evaluate current transportation needs. The TIP has been reviewed by both council during a study session on May 3rd, the Planning Commission on June 2nd, and a public hearing was held on May 17th. To date, no comments have been received. The request of council tonight is final adoption of the program through resolution 2021-08. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Any questions for Mr. Hill? Entertain a motion on resolution 2021-08.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Whalen, seconded by Ms. Bell, that we adopt resolution 2022-108. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I call for the question. Will everyone in favor of the resolution please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Hill. We now move to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business to come before the council?
There is none, Mayor.
And new business. Is there any new business to come before the council?
There's none, Mayor.
So now we move to reports by the city manager, and I see we have a slew of them tonight. Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council. I'd like to start off first with Lieutenant Andy Gildehouse to give you, to review with you, rather, the renewal of an interlocal agreement for the Tacoma Pierce County DUI driving under the influence and traffic safety task force, for which the city has been and our Lakewood Police Department has been a part of for a good number of years. I believe it expires at the end of this year. Our recommendation is to continue to participate in this task force, and we have tentatively docketed that for your consideration as part of your next regular meeting. But in the meantime, this evening, Lieutenant Gildehouse is here to give you a talk through of the ILA and the importance of the task force. With that, LT.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, and thank you, Council, for taking your time to listen to this. It's just real quick. Brianna, do you have the PowerPoint on there, or do I have to share my screen?
If you'd like to share your screen, that would be great.
All right. First,
If you don't
I'm
have
gonna
it
share
up, I
my
can
screen,
pull it up.
folks. So hang on. All right. Is that showing it there?
It is. Just enable your editing and then go up to slideshow in the present mode.
Oh boy. So here we go. And then in the which one?
Up at the top, you'll go to slideshow.
Okay. Boy. They've trained me in a lot of things. This
So
is,
your top menu bar, you've got home, insert, design.
yes, slideshow from beginning. There we
And
go.
then if you go under your display settings for us real quick, and do that pull down bar. And then go ahead and swap the view. Thank you.
Oh, look at that. All right. I'm going to add that to my training profile. Okay. Anyway, so
I'll be an exam before you get credit.
that's why I don't have much of my training profile. Okay. So anyway, we'll make this just real quick. This is the Impaired Driving Task Force interlocal agreement. We've been a part of this program for a long time, actually. So this is just renewing that interlocal agreement. And what it is it's just part of the regional DUI task force, which is parented by Target Zero. which is by the Washington Traffic Safety Council. And what it does is the regional stuff is just here in Pierce County itself. And what it does, the emphasis includes, but it's not limited to the impaired driving, like DUI with alcohol, marijuana, other drugs, street racing, distracted driving, and restraint safety such as seat belts and then child seats, which are all very important. The nice part about this ILA is that all the expenses for us being involved in it are covered by the Safety Council, Traffic Safety Council. They're all reimbursed. The officer's time, vehicle use, fuel. I mean, every expense is taken care of, and any overtime, straight time, any of that is all backfilled through the payroll system. Sorry. The nice thing about it is what they do is they come and do a saturated or emphasis patrol. So they bring in a bunch of partnering agencies from around the county. And so, you know, one night they'll work Lakewood, the Lakewood area, another night they'll work Tacoma, then Puyallup in the surrounding areas. And although we may not have an emphasis in the city of Lakewood on a particular night where the task force is out working, the benefit that we get is that our neighbors in Tacoma and Spanaway and everywhere else, those folks are traveling in and around the roads that come to Lakewood and come through Lakewood. And so there are benefits that that protect our city, even though they're not in our city necessarily every single time. But they do several of them throughout the year. So the city is incorporated in that several times throughout the year. It allows our patrol officers to keep patrolling so they don't get pulled away to the traffic collisions and the impaired driving issues, so that our patrol folks can handle our city as it needs to be attended to. It increases the awareness for folks that are out there driving, maybe think twice about their poor driving decisions or behaviors. And then the main thing it does is it targets the injury causing offenses to increase safety. We know that there are certain driving behaviors and tendencies that cause collisions, that cause injuries and fatalities. And so the main focus on that is the emphasis on stopping those so that we can make the roads safer for everybody. I'm just going to, these are just real quick. There's been a lot of changes in the DUI laws over the last few years. Just recently though, they've given the courts a little more latitude on how they treat these DUIs and the options they have for them. Instead of just straight incarceration all the time, there's now all types of treatment options. There's deferred options. And so you can look at these slides. I can email them to you if you want to, but there's just a couple of changes in there that make it a little better for the courts and give them a little more latitude to work on it. The other thing too is it also increases penalties for when you have children in the car and you're driving impaired, which we all think is very important. Just real quick numbers from last year. During COVID, a lot of these patrols were not conducted, and we still have these numbers. Seatbelt citations were 558. This is just in the regional area. 1,071 arrests made for impaired driving, and then the speeding citations were 6,616. So you can see there's a lot of stuff that's going on out there. The national trend for impaired driving is not going down. If you look at I've got 3 charts that will go give it to you real quickly here. The first one, this is just statewide, and I'm going to make this real simple. If you look over to the right, there's a bunch of graphs that go up and down. But the main thing you want to look at is what is called the trajectory line. If you look in each one of those, there's only one out of those 8 or 9 categories where the line is actually going down or flat. All the other lines are in the upward trajectory, which is not the direction we want things to go. We want those arrows to go down because that means fatalities are down. It means injuries are down. It means that collisions are down. And so this is just a statewide quick glance right here. This next one right here, this is just from Pierce County itself in our regional area here. Again, the lines are very similar to that of what the statewide trend is. And then this is just for the city of Lakewood itself. Now, the city of Lakewood has some flatter lines, which is good. And we want to keep those flat, but we want to take those flat ones and push them down. We want to just take that tail end and start pushing it down towards the bottom of the graph so that we're taking those numbers down. I'm just I don't have the email in front of me, but I did remember it. After I put this quick PowerPoint together, received an email from the National Traffic Safety Board that sends out all the stuff from all the states combined. During this last COVID period that we had, a lot of people were shut down, working from home, all those things were changed. the total traffic percentage went down 13.9%. And how they calculate that is the number of miles driven. So the total number of miles driven during COVID were down 13.9%. That's a significant number. I mean, that's millions and millions of miles. The injury and fatality rate was up 6%. And what that means is that our driving behaviors are worse than they were before COVID. And I think we've all seen it with the roads being a little more empty during this time. People have kind of taken this freedom to drive faster and make more decisions that are unsafe for those around us. And so we need to get back out there and start reminding people that it's not just their life that they're impacting. It's a whole bunch of other lives that they potentially impact. And we'd like to meet them before we have to call the fire department and try and cut them out of the car. We want to meet them while they're still all in one piece and in a safe environment. So it would be my recommendation that we just go ahead and move forward and go ahead and adopt the ILA to continue that emphasis. And I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Questions for Lieutenant Gildenhouse? Mr. Branstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Lieutenant, thank you for the presentation and being able to go and do that. I had wondering if you might go back to the slide that you had that had the various graphs about how the different traffic behaviors were in Lakewood, with the trends where you noted that Lakewood had some flat trends, being able to go and do that. And I was kind of wondering, are there some of those 9 or so items on there that are particularly actionable through this task force?
Yeah, so one of the lines just in the city of Lakewood itself, one of the lines that is on the upward trajectory is impaired involvement, as is distraction involvement. So they call it the offense, and then whether it's involved or involvement is how they categorize it. So under impaired involvement, distraction involved, and speeding involved, those trends are all upward at this point in time, which is excuse me, I'll turn it off here, which is obviously concerning because those are behaviors that are easy to control. That's an individual choice that if through awareness they can definitely control those. Things that aren't another trend that is on a little upward mobility is the young driver, those that are ages 16 to 25. So again, those are our bulk of drivers that are known to cause collisions, and thus their insurance rates reflect that for anybody who's had to insure their children when they become drivers. So those are on the upward trends. The flat trend, which is actually really good, is motorcyclists and drivers over 70 plus. So one of the biggest concerns we have is motorcycles, especially as the weather gets warmer. But that shows a flat trend in Lakewood, and then also the 70 plus drivers. Other than that, most of the other lines are pretty flat, and we'd like to keep it that way and actually push it down, like I said.
Okay. Hey, and I appreciate that you included in your presentation some data about what the task force accomplished last year in terms of citations and things to do that. And I'm supportive of approving, a continuation of the interlocal agreement. I would just note that in the agreement, in the recitals, in the list of whereases, there's a whereas that says that the task force has been successful in getting grants. And there's one that says it's been, that talks about it expiring and it talks about the goals. That I would have thought that it would have been good to have a whereas to say the task force has been effective in accomplishing its goals, but that isn't there. It was there in your presentation, but it would seem that should have been one of the recitals in the interlocal agreement itself. Nonetheless, I certainly am supportive of Lakewood continuing to both participate in the task force and having the task force operating like.
Okay. And one of the things you can do, if you go to the Washington Traffic Safety Council website, if you click on the Target Zero slide, it'll take you to their annual report. And I tell you, there's graphs about graphs about graphs, and it will give you really hard numbers that I didn't want to necessarily bore you with, but there are a lot of good numbers in that really show their success rate and how out there doing a good job.
Well, you know, one of our goals in the way we do business is to try to use data to help us make good choices. So having good data is a value to us, and therefore to the community. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions for Lieutenant Gildenhouse? I just note from anecdotally from personal experience, I had the opportunity to ride along from the very beginning briefing to the end of a DUI emphasis patrol a few years ago, and it was well organized and highly effective. So I can see how the program can work. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Back to you, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you. Next up, I'd like to call upon our Parks and Recreation Director, Mary Dodsworth. And Ms. Dodsworth would like to give you a briefing on a new program proposal, a youth core program to employ some of our youth here in Lakewood. This summer, it would kick off on June 21st. It would be a 6-week program. It would also be a partnership with both the school district and communities and schools here in Lakewood. And our recommendation would be to utilize ARPA funds to finance this. And in your packet is a funding request that would total $68,000 plus dollars. So with that, Ms. Dodsworth.
I'm just waiting for Ms. Dodsworth to appear on Zoom. Give 1 moment, please.
City Clerk, if she's not available, if she's not ready right now, why don't we move forward with our Human Services Coordinator, Brian Humphreys. Is that okay? On the next item?
Yes, we can proceed with Mr. Humphreys. He is available.
Okay, let's do that then. So next up, I'd like to call upon Mr. Humphreys to give the council an update and a recommendation from your CSAB board regarding 2022 Human Services funding. Mr. Humphreys.
Thank you, Council. We're going to hear from our chair, Sarah Yamamoto. If you can let her in, Brianna. There she is.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay.
You're live.
Okay, good evening, Mary Anderson, Deputy Mayor Whalen, council members. I am Sarah Yamamoto, Chair of the Lakewood's Community Services Advisory Board. I know you've had a long evening, so I'll try to keep this quick. I'm here to present 2 recommendations from the Community Services Advisory Board. First recommendation will be about the allocation process for 2022 Human Services dollars from the city's general fund. And the second is a recommendation about how the advisory board might help you determine how to best invest American Rescue Plan Act stimulus dollars if you do decide to allocate 1% for human services needs. So first, as described in the memo included in your packet, The human services contracts have generally been for 2 years, so the allocations you approved in 2020 would have been for 2021 and 2022. It was decided that contracts in 2021 would be for 1 year, so the city would have the ability to be flexible with funding in 2022 if needs change significantly due to COVID. We don't have a lot of hard data about community needs right now, but monthly collaboration meetings, Lakewood's Promise Advisory Board meetings, and many community meetings other partners have that the Human Services Department participate in all affirm that needs are not changing very much. So since the process of rating, reviewing, and deliberating applications is time consuming for all parties, and we expect that it would yield a similar result to what we have now, the board is recommending a lean process to offer second-year contracts to existing funded partners, as long as they meet 2 conditions. First is that contractors complete their site visits with good ratings in each of the 4 review categories, and those site visits will be conducted by a human services coordinator this summer. The second condition is that programs are on pace to meet contract deliverables based on their 3rd quarter reports. In your attached materials, attachment A is a summary of the current allocations, and attachment B are the results of the 1st quarter reports documents received so far. There are no organizations right now who might be at risk of not receiving a recommendation for a second contract. There are several with lower than expected outcomes so far, but we expect that the 1st quarter will likely be the one where COVID restrictions were the most severe. So those don't necessarily project what the full year would look like. 6 organizations have not yet submitted invoices for the 1st quarter. In those cases, the Human Services Coordinator has been in contact with each one. And in each of those cases, we find that the work is being performed, but administrative staff at those organizations are overburdened because that's just where a lot of cuts have been happening to avoid cutting staff who do direct service. And so those combined are why the recommendation is to use information from the site visit and then 3 quarters of data for the 2022 recommendations. So, just kind of ran through all that. I'll pause there in case you have any questions. Be happy to answer them.
Questions? So I do have a concern. COVID presented a strange environment for the delivery of goods and services across the economy, whether it's private enterprise, nonprofits, or government. Some things were overburdened and volume went way up. Other things came to a screeching halt. I'm concerned that the carryover of an allocation, just because we did it that way before, might be the wrong thing to do, that some may need more help and others may have earned less. For example, we have supported LASA for years. They do good work. We supported them in their capital requests. But in 2020, it appears that they served less than half the people that they committed to serve when there was a greater need. Has the committee looked at any of these anomalies to see whether we should change the allocation for 2022?
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. I would say that the committee has looked broadly at the program categories, that our 5 are emotional supports and youth programming, housing assistance and homelessness prevention, crisis stabilization and advocacy, access to health and behavioral health care, and access to food. And the recommendation was that we don't see those categories changing significantly from 2021 to 2022. As far as LASA's output specifically, I would invite Brian to give input there if he has. But I would note that unless I'm not looking at the same thing you are, they are not included in the 2021 Human Services funded programs.
Yeah, I would just affirm what Sarah just said, that the Community Services Advisory Board put LASA through the ringer in their application for 2021, in part based on the outputs from 2020. So we're confident, at least for 2021, that we have the right partners on board, and we do discuss the outputs for each organization after each quarter's reports come in at the advisory board meeting. So there may be anomalies, but we feel so far, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, that all the partners so far are doing good work and the right work that the community needs right now.
I would agree that that summarizes what the board has discussed.
Any other questions? Mr. Brandstetter?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Yamamoto, I guess I have a question about the timeline that's suggested by your recommendation. It's to continue and award second-year contracts, but that the two conditions include they have to be on pace to meet contract deliverables based on their third quarter reports. And those reports, Richard, you indicated that you don't even have some of the first quarter reports. So it would seem that we would be November, December before we're even receiving those third quarter reports to evaluate, to decide whether a particular agency is going to move forward for a 2022 contract. How does the committee look to quickly make those assessments, or are we going to set some strict guidelines to get those third quarter reports done very early in the fourth quarter so that that determination can be made without rewarding someone for procrastinating and their report being done at the 11th hour or 11th month?
Thank you. Appreciate the question. I would say the Brian, Human Services Coordinator, is in close contact with all of the organizations who are being funded at this time. And so any red flags that would arise, would be noted before the third quarter. And again, we're looking at progress over a period of time, recognizing that COVID has introduced a lot of volatility this year, just hard to base things off of one quarter. But I would open that up to Brian in case he has anything to add based on his conversations.
No, you're spot on, Sarah. And they will know if that is the plan, and they will get their invoices in very quickly at the conclusion of the third quarter. And as Sarah said, there is unlikely to be a situation where someone is struggling to get their third quarter report in quickly and also has not thrown up red flags during the site visit and getting in the first and second quarter. So we'll have a lot of context by then to make those decisions.
And that I guess that I would just say that I'm comfortable with the recommendation of continuing those folks that have outloaned and have programs that are moving forward. And with the two 2021 Lakewood Promise strategic initiatives that we fund with the increased human services funding that would come from ARPA, with the one exception, and that has to do with the funding strategy of access to food. That as we're looking at what to do with all of the ARPA money in the city, we're looking to try to see what other money is available out there so that we're not duplicating or doing something that's not impactful in the overall picture. And it seems to me that access to food has been during COVID and ARPA initiative from a variety of levels of government that those folks that are in that particular human services function are being provided with a healthy level of resources to be able to do them. And it may be that the providers that we have that do that are not as dependent as when they first applied pre-COVID to look for Lakewood support, because support has come from the county and the state and even Department of Agriculture and things to do that. So I guess that I would want to add that lens to say, let's look at who we're funding, but have they become suddenly eligible and recipient of significant resources from other levels of government, that maybe we can make better use of those monies in Lakewood because they're already going to be healthy with financial resources. And I guess that I would just ask that we look at that as we're moving through that decision to just automatically say everybody ought to do that and go forward. If they don't really need our money because they're being taken care of from other sources.
Thank you. That definitely makes sense. I think the board is certainly trying to evaluate each organization within a broader context and not within the vacuum of human services funding. And in part, that's why we're trying to work very closely with Lakewood's Promise, and that's informing our recommendations. But I will certainly bring that back to the board for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bulkey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Yamamoto or Mr. Humphreys, so you mentioned you haven't seen a real change in the nature of the demand for the services. And I assume that's the last year post-COVID. And you're asking that for 2022, you're basically just doing what we have here in 2021. And I'm looking at that list, and thank you for providing it. So maybe no list is perfect, but if you were to go back on the 2021 list, do you feel like you're waiting between those five areas is really what you would do if you would do it today? Or what kind of, or within those weightings, would there be any changes within the weightings in your mind?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I would clarify that we did not enter into the bidding process with weightings for different categories. Rather, it was, we laid out, these are the 5 categories we want to address, and then see how board members rated each organization on its own as a standalone entity without reference to others. And then at the end of the process found, okay, it ended up being $125,000 for emotional supports and youth program, 40 for housing assistance, but those were not predetermined going in.
Okay, so you didn't predetermine the buckets and then try to fill those buckets. You said, okay, here's our buckets, but let's just see what happens.
Right, and then what were the most compelling applications based on the value of their programs.
Okay, so have you had any other organizations who are on the outside looking in ask for 2022 appropriations? Do we know of any? And I get maybe that's to Mr. Humphreys.
I do know of one that received funding in 2020 that did not receive funding in 2021. who has been asking, and it is Pierce County AIDS Foundation, receives its funding for the medical case management. They're receiving funding for Oasis Youth Center, and they have previously received funding for both programs, and there just wasn't enough funding, and their application wasn't quite strong enough to make that cut. We had 50 applications, I believe. There are about 15 organizations that did not, but none of them wrote strong enough applications that they were tremendous losses that we couldn't get in. All the organizations that wrote great applications ended up getting funded.
Okay, so you only heard of one that was on the outside looking in that said, hey, we'd like to get back in. There's only been one organization.
Yeah, there are some newer organizations who had applied for the first time that are asking, but none with a history of serving Lakewood, no.
Okay. And then with the ARPA money, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think we're just in discussion time now. You say that CSAB's recommendation is to allocate human services funding to one or both of Lakewood's promised strategic initiatives, workforce development and youth mental health. How would that look in your mind? And I guess maybe I'm asking Sarah.
Sure. Yeah, we're looking at those two categories as they've been identified by Lakewood's Promise, and really focusing on, we know that council has been interested in the past and really kind of, putting everything towards one initiative very strongly, rather than trying to distribute over a broad range. So we'd be looking at really one organization being funded by workforce development, one by youth mental health, or splitting into two organizations. But it'd be pretty focused.
Okay. So, and I would note here, and the city manager may talk a little bit more about it later, but there's a couple of things on the horizon. The county is looking for partners on certain things, and one of those could be workforce development, because they've set some ARPA money aside, and I would expect that they'll set more ARPA money aside for workforce development. I'm not sure how that looks, but I, on the ground, but I know there's a lot of folks talking about that. There's also on the mental health side, perhaps some funding, that would be another place to cooperate with the county. Or there's also the behavioral health tax money coming out fairly soon. So, there are going to be some opportunities in those two areas. I just would like to make you aware of those.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I may point out really quick that youth mental health would be largely partner-based, probably. And we have seen that there is a lot of proposed funding for workforce development. The way that the city does workforce development is not the way that the workforce development sector typically operates. We operate in a very relationship, communication-based style. It's unique.
I think we're going to have to remain agile as we see what money pours in from other sources from the ARPA funding. And it may be that there are very worthy programs that we would prioritize that we, at the last minute, fail to fund or refuse to fund because they're eligible for adequate funding in other sources. So that was it changes every few weeks. So it's going to be a tough problem. Thanks for all your help in trying to sort it out.
Thank you.
Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Yamamoto and Mr. Humphries. Next up, I understand Ms. Dodsworth is available. So I'd like to call on our Parks and Recreation Director, Mary Dodsworth, to talk about the Summer Youth Corps. Ms. Dodsworth, the floor is yours.
All right, I think I'm here now. I apologize. Thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and everybody else who's rooting for me to get on here tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to consider this opportunity. When council was considering some of the youth-related issues and needs, you had suggested developing a summer youth corps, an employment type program for youth in the community. It could be a very complicated and difficult program to put together from scratch. And so we go out like we do in all of our community-based programs and talk to our partners. Who's doing it? Who's got some best practices? Who might be interested in partnering with us, and or who's doing it that we could help refer youth to. So we found that communities and schools and the Clover Park School District was getting ready or had been working on that type of a program. And we're really excited to learn about it. And they're also, of course, working with many, many community partners to make it happen. And so it was based on a successful program that's already been implemented in other schools and best practices. And so they're excited to put this together. Of course, the time frame for summer programs is here. It's a short window. And so everybody is really rallying to pull this off. The program provides, it's a different type of program than what I was initially visioning, and it may be a little bit different than what you might have been initially envisioning. This isn't a group of kids together and going out and pull weeds one week and build a fence the next week. It's really a different kind of program. I think it's going to be very empowering and a powerful program for our kids. It involves leadership, educational support for those that might need to retrieve credits for graduation. It includes financial literacy, project-based learning, and then they come together to figure out community problems, create solutions, and present them. So it's this really amazing program. They still have opportunities in leadership to maybe go out and pull some weeds and build a fence and do some of those kinds of projects. And we hope that occurs during the leadership portion of it. But if council or mayor, you'll indulge me, I have just a 3-minute video that kind of gives you a progression of from the program that happened. And I'd like to share it with you just so that you can kind of see, now that you know a little bit more about kind of how the program would be developed. This is just, it's kind of get you excited about the program. If that would be fine, I'll move forward with doing that. Let's see, I may have in my review here, let's get on here. And I need to share screen, and let's get on here just a second. We're going to share the screen, and we are going to find this. It's up here, so I'm not sure how that goes on. So let's just hit it and see if it comes up. Are you singing? No. Okay.
Oh, only audio. There we go.
So I hope you got the audio on that. I didn't see you guys dancing with it, so I'm glad that you did. It was pretty amazing. And so you can kind of see it really talks about them coming together as individuals, as a group, learning about their community, going out, solving problems in their community. And I think that's going to be a lot more powerful than building a fence, even though fences are, nice when you can build them in the parks. But anyway, so I think that I think. Hello. Okay, so I do believe that it's a 6-week program. It is due to begin. I'd be happy to answer some specific questions. The proposal was attached that had a little more breakdown, and it also had. Okay, I think I must.
Okay, let's go ahead and call our meeting to order then. Any public comments this morning? I don't know how many we've got on board.
Mary, do you have another browser open that you need to close?
Must have something happening here. Sorry about that. So there we go. Sorry about that. So Carrie Pedwick, who's with Communities and Schools, is here to answer any of your questions. And I just wanted to make a note. This is really focusing on Clover Park High School students. And that is because communities, this of course is coming together quite quickly. The principal is engaged, Communities and Schools is engaged. There's businesses and organizations that are engaged. We'd like to partner with them as well. The idea is this would be a pilot project. We would be doing it this summer, establishing, all the best parts of it, who else needs to be involved, looking for sustained funding for future programs. And then in the future, next summer and beyond, really maybe opening it up and engaging it for other age groups, but also for other high school students in the area. So I'd be happy to answer any of your specific questions. And then again, Carrie's here to answer any questions regarding the program that I might not be able to help you with.
Mr. Whalen.
Thank you. Thank you both. Hi, Carrie. Good to see you. My question is about the curriculum, and it looks like we're contracting with Quantum to provide some sort of leadership development program. It would be interesting just to see the blocks of instruction and whether there would be any sort of opportunity for one of us to come in and say hi in a leadership development type class or not. If that would be of value.
So I actually drafted an email today that I'll be sending you shortly to invite you all to participate because part of the initial research that our high school students will be doing is talking with community leaders and asking them questions and learning from community members and community leaders that have experience and expertise that students could benefit from. And then those same community leaders can come back to participate in the presentations to be presented to when the students have the solutions at the end of the 6 weeks. The school district is contracting with Quantum Learning, the same folks that helped do the leadership development component of the video, the program in the video that you saw, Leaders of Change. They'll be here for 1 week, but really it's 6 weeks kind of broken into the first part is really leadership development and that initial brainstorm and research phase. Then the students will have some time in the middle to really develop their proposals and dive into some community issues that they really are interested in helping solve, being part of the solution, and then preparing for their presentations. Kind of all the while, doing credit retrieval in the morning if that's something that is needed. A lot of our students are needing to do some credit retrieval this summer, maybe more even than other summers, and then opportunity for other enrichment activities when they're not doing our leadership development components.
So, and as I think Mary indicated, this is going to be focused this particular summer as a pilot project on the Clover Park High School population as opposed to Lakes or Harrison Prep as well?
That's right. The program is already underway, right? Our Communities and Schools in partnership with Clover Park High School, with the hope that this is a pilot, that it's 80 rising seniors is who we're hoping to get with us this summer and hopefully to expand. And Communities and Schools, of course, hopes to expand our partnership to additional schools to serve more kids.
So since this is kind of already in gestation and on its way to development this summer, So we showed up potentially with some cash to participate with, and all of a sudden the arms are wide open, or?
No, we've been trying to find some funding for this actually for a while. A lot of summer funding that's coming through the federal relief funding isn't open yet. So the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction has some summer funding, and they're not opening it until this month. Well, our program starts in 2 weeks, so we're excited to offer this to young people and offer a cash incentive for participating, which really reduces barriers for young people to participate. You know, students who've gotten part-time jobs and are going to be choosing that over credit retrieval, leadership development, and really re-engaging in student learning, which is what we're hoping to focus on for these 6 weeks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Volkey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Carrie. Just a couple of questions. One, how are the kids going to be chosen, or have they already been chosen?
They self-select to be chosen. So it's rising seniors are the students that we're focusing on. So it's a fairly narrow group. I mean, it's more than 80 kids, but that will be our target. And wow, how much would I love that we could get more than 80 students to show up every day for 6 weeks and pour their summers into leadership development and their community.
So how many hours a day is it then for those 6 weeks?
So it depends on if they're doing credit retrieval or not, but for the Warriors of Change program specifically is just about 3 hours in the afternoon after lunch. Credit retrieval will be in the morning for students.
Okay. So if they have credit retrieval, they would have to be there most of the day. You would provide lunch as part of this then? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
The
And
school
if they have,
district is as part of
if
this.
they have a summer job, they'd have to work around it a little bit. Okay.
Yep.
Can you give us some examples of items that at the end, when we saw that, looked like they had a presentation about some ideas for their community. Do you have any other examples? Or is that a fair question to throw that in there? Any other examples of what groups have come up with?
What I'll say is that it is up to the students. It's up to the young people, what they think, what they know, and what they feel is the largest challenges or issues in our community. And so we're going to be leaving it up to them, which is a little bit scary for adults. But this is the process of leadership development and really empowering young people to go through this process. And, you know, there's going to be adult, you know, teachers at the school that's going to be helping each small group. There's going to be college age mentors, you know, alumni of CP that will be helping them, you know, understand the difference between just things that are happening in the community and really priorities, things that they're going to be, you know, maybe diving in more and coming up with solutions. But it could be things, you know, I think the example there was some around waste and recycling. There was some about uses of a vacant lot or suggestions for uses of community or public spaces. But it really could, it's up to them. And so that's why we're really hoping to have some community leaders that have some broad array of expertise that can be on call. And when young people have an interest in an area, we can call them in and y'all can sit down with them.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Renstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, Ms. Dodsworth, you're right. This is not at all what I was envisioning when we talked about having a summer youth employment jobs program. These are not jobs. This is a leadership training program. That
yes.
So what does someone who, and we're going to give a student a stipend if they complete the 6 weeks. What does 6 weeks mean? What does complete mean? Does that mean you didn't miss a day? How close does that align with work? Does it mean that, you know, that you were never late without calling in with a verifiable reason? I guess I'm trying to see, this is a whole different menu of benefits than goes with getting your first job. And I'm trying to see where are the parallels.
I'll just start, Carrie, and you could jump in. I would say for the age of the student and the type of employment that they receive, those are the kinds of skills that they learn, is showing up every day, doing the expected tasks that you're assigned that day, having good social interaction with either your coworkers or your customers or whatever you're working on. And those kinds of criteria are built into the program. And I'm not sure if you get, you know, miss one day, you don't receive it. And Carrie can probably outline that. But I think in the end, you know, for, again, the age of the student and the type of employment that they typically get, and we hire young people as well. So, you know, we want them to be, at the end of the summer, be able to say, I did this. I learned this, I accomplished this. And I think that they're going to be able to, after this program, really be able to have skills and abilities that they'll be able to utilize for the next time they go to apply for a job. When they ask those questions about leadership, when they ask those questions about what would you do in this situation, or how would you handle this? And I think when you see, you know, when you see our youth council members, when they come in the first month, and then now at the end, when they presented at, you know, when they present at council, is they've learned so much just by attending and showing up and being given those opportunities. And I think this is the same kind of an opportunity. You know, they don't, most students of that age don't get paid a lot of money per hour. And so $500 at the end of the summer is a lot of money for those individuals. It might be the most money they've ever received at one time. And again, it's for, you've earned it. You've earned it by doing whatever the tasks are that you've been assigned. And so that's why financial literacy is being built into this, so that they're learning about, well, how do you even cash a $500 check? What do I do with it? And where do I put it? And then do I, you know, go out and buy one new pair of shoes? Or do I, you know, how do I utilize this so maybe it lasts longer? So there's some financial literacy built into it, which normally you don't get in a new job. So I think that there's a lot of skills. And again, it's different than what we expected. I agree with you, Councilmember Ranstetter. When I was first talking to Carrie, I was like, okay, I've got this project at the park, and I've got this project with my day camp program. I've got this project over at Harry Todd. So we had all these little, you know, here's a week long of this, that, and this is very different, but I think it's very valuable, and I think it can be really beneficial to the kids in our community. So
you think it's valuable? I guess, do you think it's better?
I don't know about better, but I think valuable, and there's different abilities. I mean, I'm trying to hire youth this summer to do jobs, and we're having a heck of a time finding individuals to come and do some of those other things. So better, it's just different. So.
All right, that's all I got for now, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Well, thanks for the update, Mary.
Thank you.
Barry.
Thanks for having me.
And then the remaining item is Tiffany Spear of ARPA.
Yeah, I'd like to call on our long-range planning and strategic manager, Tiffany Spear, to give you an update on some of our community engagement they're about to kick off to seek feedback regarding the ARPA funds. Ms. Spear?
Thank you once again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So some of what you just heard tonight actually referred to ARPA as well, the American Rescue Plan Act, but I've got a few more updates for you. And again, cognizant of the time, I'm going to blow through this. Please tell me if I'm going too fast and stop me for any questions, of course.
At 9:45, you will get a lot of objections.
Okay. So very briefly to recap, the American Rescue Plan Act now has been finalized. The Department of Treasury has issued a number of pieces of guidance since. On the left, you'll see the total that Lakewood will be receiving is almost 14 million. And we qualify as a metropolitan city, so fall into this subcategory of how the money is being distributed to state and local governments. The obligation of funds by Treasury's guidance is now set at December 31st of 2024, and the funds must be exhausted by 2026. So that's actually 2 years longer than was originally thought. What has been confirmed is that ARPA recipients may use the cover a portion of payroll and benefits of staff to administer ARPA programs, including the dispersal of the funds out to third parties, as well as managing any grant programs the city might administer. The community engagement program is underway. It's one of the first things that you talked about and provided direction about. And so very quickly, the city now has a live web page about this. It's just cityoflakewood.us/ARPA. And there's now a video on there describing what ARPA is all about and seeking feedback from the public about it. The June Connections magazine has an article. We are in the middle of hiring our first intern to staff the community engagement project going forward. We hope to have that person identified by about 2.5 weeks from now, and there may be a second intern hired in the near future as well. The outreach to cities, boards, and commissions is already underway. So I spoke with Lakewood's Promise last week, and as was mentioned earlier this evening, I spoke to the Youth Council today. I'll be talking to Community Collaboration on Wednesday, and then a number of others over the next month or so is going to happen. There's going to be at least one public open house held where anybody and everyone can come here and then speak about their thoughts for how ARPA should be spent by the city. An online survey will be launched in conjunction with that open house. And then in July on the 7th and the 14th and the 28th, there's going to be noon stakeholder sessions for a couple of concentrated types of partners that the city has to get their feedback as well. And then we are also going to be, hopefully starting by this Friday actually, to provide input or information to seek input from the public at both the farmers markets and also the summer concert series. Collaborations, we're the summer youth program that you just heard a little bit about just now from Ms. Dodsworth, talking about working with the Tacoma and potentially the county on purchasing a hotel for emergency shelter housing. That's in early discussions. Preliminary discussions about how to leverage ARPA to support losses operations and potentially a shelter expansion. Talking about leveraging ARPA and maximizing ARPA usage with the county and the cities as well. That was kicked off by the county executive and council chair last week, and the city manager and I were on that call. The city has also been asked to partner with the county to develop a multi-year business development program focused on BIPOC businesses. And then the city is also looking at what is being funded and advertised by the Small Business Administration right now to create a community navigator program where current partners or maybe potentially the city itself could function as a navigator to the resources that are available for businesses and residents. So there is a request of the council tonight, just to secure by consensus or however the council would want to do this, support or approval of using ARPA dollars to pay for the payroll and benefits of employees who are dedicating some or all of their time to ARPA administration, and also the interns as well that will be soon brought on board. Just really quickly, this is what's going to be seen at the farmers markets and summer concert series. There'll be this information here. And then again, if you go to cityoflakewood.us/ARPA, you'll see information that's specific to the city and then also starting to gather input from the public. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you and answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Spear? Mr. Branstetter.
I don't really have a question. I just have a comment on the sign that you just showed us. And I wouldn't say that the city has received. I think it would be better to say will receive over going on. There's a different picture of has received already and will be receiving over time when you talk about that much money.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would note that I tried to work with Todd Kraus to break into the treasury, and they said I'm who I am, and they wouldn't send us the money. So I'm verified, but it says there's an error message, and 24 hours later, I received a notification that they had received the request for assistance, and they'd get back to me, and that was Friday. Mr. Whalen.
Thank you. Thanks, Tiffany, for the update. I had a couple of questions. So looking at the guidance on the website about how the funding can be used, take me through, if you will, what our thoughts are in terms of maybe a cooperation with regard to sewer, water, and broadband infrastructure. Do we have potential projects that Lakewood Water is looking at for us to partner with, or Pierce County sewer in areas that have yet to receive sewer that we could partner with?
There's a couple of ideas that have been talked about so far, Mr. Whalen, or Councilmember Whalen. First of all, one of the things within the ARPA program is a recognition that certain uses of the funds will be presumed eligible in areas that are considered, quote, hardest hit communities. And those include the 4 qualified census tracts within the city of Lakewood, which are Tillicum and Woodbrook, Springbrook, parts of Lakeview, and parts of Monta Vista, which is the northeast area of the city. And within those areas, obviously, some more than others, but there are the potential to use these funds for water and sewer infrastructure improvement. And there may also be, I'm not sure about this one, but there may also be some need for broadband expansion. When the city representatives were on the call last week with the county and other jurisdictions, there was a request actually made by University Place that the county consider a matching program for sewer system expansion. And the county executive, at least, took that very favorably and was going to take it back and talk to his folks in Public Works to see if that was possible. And if that were the case, I'm sure the city would want to consider whether that would work for it as well as UP. So as the mayor just said, though, this is moving very quickly, and we're just trying to keep aware of all of the different conversations that are going on. But I do think when it's all said and done, that there may actually be some opportunity to use funds in that category by Lakewood.
And do we have a good handle on where broadband needs may be within our city?
I personally don't. I'm sure that our Public Works Department would be able to answer that.
That would be probably informed by the Comcast folks or the other providers.
Correct. Yes.
The other question I had on the category about addressing negative impacts, economic impacts caused by a public health emergency, it talks about supporting small businesses. Is there a possibility that we might be able to use some of these monies to support small businesses by encouraging their either new or renewed investment in Lakewood, or an expansion in Lakewood by maybe mitigating some permits, or maybe the traffic impact fee issue in the central business district, those kinds of things that might make it more possible than not for them to either invest or expand their investment?
I think the answer is yes. It's all to be determined. In part by you, because what's happening is we're reaching out to the various people that we can get our hands on, and that includes at the stakeholder level, people who work in the city as developers, right, as well as property owners. And so asking them that question, we may get what you expect as an answer, or we may not, I'm not sure, but that's certainly part of the discussion we'll have in July with them.
Got it. Well, I do like, they also talk about speeding the recovery of tourism, travel, and hospitality sectors. That's kind of a nice broad open door for some of the things that we already invest lodging tax for. And I can think of a few good uses. So.
Yes, and we are reaching out to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee or Commission for their feedback as well.
Got it. Okay, well, very good. More to follow, I'm sure.
Yes.
Any other questions? Anything further, Mr. Caulfield?
Yes, actually, I was looking for a consensus for council on two things. The first is, even though we haven't officially received any ARPA monies, we do expect to in the near future. And I would like to get some consensus from the council that it's okay, once those monies are received, to begin using those to pay for the staff that we plan on hiring, first and foremost, to engage with the community, as Ms. Spear has pointed out. And we expect that to be $15,000 to $30,000 between now and the end of the year, the end of this year. And then secondly, the Summer Youth Corps program that Ms. Dodsworth talked about in partnership with communities and schools, is the council okay with utilizing ARPA dollars on that? And if you, and Mayor, if you're good with just giving me consensus on that tonight, that's what I need. But if you would like it brought back in a more formal environment in terms of a motion, we can do that as part of your June 21st meeting as well. So that's one bit of direction I'm looking for a consensus.
Is there anyone who sees a need to bring those items back to a future meeting, other than authorizing them as part of a larger package officially at a later date? I think you got your consensus.
Mr. Mayor, I would just say that I am fine with the money for the interns. That I am less fine with the converting from a youth employment program to a youth training program without it coming back and discussing it further. That's one council person.
So I'd just like to remind the council that, again, things are moving very, very quickly. And that program is expected to kick off 2 weeks from today on June 21st.
What about Ms. Dodsworth's efforts to hire people to actually perform tasks? Can that be fit into ARPA?
The answer is yes, it could be. However, those people won't be hired until later this summer or fall. I'm having a hard time, as Ms. Dodsworth pointed out, I'm having a hard time filling summer maintenance positions.
Yeah, it's hard. Well,
so that brings me to my next item.
Oh, Mr. Whalen first.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't see his hand.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Caulfield.
He waves a lot.
Oh. Yeah, I too am a little bit concerned about the change of direction, but given that it's a horse that's on the track, to the extent we can help some youth achieve some learning opportunity and leadership opportunity this summer, I'm okay for the relatively small dollars we're talking about. I think combined, you're talking about 110 probably, John, is that right?
That's correct, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'm okay with that this time. And I agree though, Mike, maybe next summer we need to do something a little bit more formalized. This has just come so quickly.
Well, I guess that I'd still like to see how we would move forward with still doing some an employment program for part of the summer, even if it starts later. I mean, I see a lot more value to the individuals in that than this. And I speak from my experience at the college of where I ran both types of programs, and the people that came out of employment programs get a lot more resilience and better long-term benefit than people that go through short-term feel-good leadership programs.
Yeah.
And
I'm just going to be right up front with you, Mayor and Council. I'm not going to be able to, if you tell me this evening, that you want to have a youth employment program later this summer, I don't know if I can deliver on that. Because I don't know, because again, we're having a hard time getting applications for existing jobs for which that particular profile of people typically come in and apply for. And by the way, we're not the only ones. The private sector is having a really hard time, getting entry and above entry level positions.
In the restaurant
Bill.
industry, yeah,
A number of industries, not just restaurant, a number of industries.
yeah.
So and Ms. Dodsworth and I, we love the idea of a summer employment program. I'm just being right up front with you. I don't think I can get it up and going this year. Now, next year, I think as we go through this and things evolve and we get more precise with how we want to invest the ARPA monies, I think, yes, we would have a better chance at that point in time.
So while I share some of those same concerns, at a minimum, this takes a decent sized cadre of 17-year-olds, gives them a wholesome activity. It's a test, gives them a little money, keeps them out of trouble. I see ancillary values to that above and beyond what they may learn. Although I too have seen the difference both from a personal perspective. I was one of those dirty hands, summer take care of the grounds kind of guys when I was a rising senior, I guess is the term for it. And I saw it when I was chair of the Goodwill Board, when we had construction projects that had a component of training, but 4 days a week, you had a hammer in your hand. And you had to show up for work every day. And so I'd like to see them both. And if we can stand up for next year, that'd be a great thing, but I'm comfortable going forward now. See Ms. Bell's hand up?
I was just wondering why this has to be relegated to the summer. Could it be something that could be after school? I mean, when it's time to think things out, to get a program together. I do know that next year, yes, it would be better. I love a youth leadership program. I've seen a lot of benefits with them. So I do think that we would be able to get some benefit out of it for the youth, and something I think is better than nothing. But my question was, why does it have to be a youth core summer program? I know that because a lot of people have jobs after school. There's other times they're not always just free in the summer. So I don't know if that was something that we could look at. If not, I would love to see the youth job program really developed and thought through for next summer.
If I could maybe address some of this, because Ms. Spear mentioned that on May 27th, Pierce County Executive and the County Council Chair sponsored a special Pierce County Council meeting where they invited representatives of all the cities and to talk about ARPA. And the meeting was twofold. The first was for the county to identify where they are in terms of prioritizing the investment of the ARPA monies that they're going to be receiving. And I know I passed that on to you last week. And I will say that Ms. Spear and I, we were very, very impressed with the work that the county has done and where they are. Secondly, the county exec and the county chair, the county council chair, wanted to hear from cities and towns if there was an interest in partnering and collaborating on a number of fronts. And it would be in the area of, business assistance, homelessness, affordable housing, youth programs, infrastructure, water, sewer, broadband, and the list goes on. Actually, just about everything that has been mentioned this evening from this body. And I strongly recommend that you give me the direction this evening to follow up with the county to say that, yes, we do want to partner and collaborate. Now, what that's going to look like is still to be determined and certainly would be at your prerogative. But for example, the youth programs, the county has the ability and the scope and the resources right now to potentially put together something that broad that we could then piggyback on, including even later this summer or this fall. So I do think that there's some tremendous opportunity there. And the county exec and the county council chair provided a deadline of June 17th, which is actually 10 days from now, a week from Thursday. So if you needed some time to maybe think on that, and we could come back and have a conversation at your study session next Monday. But again, my recommendation would be that you allow me to follow up with the county and say, yes, Lakewood is on board and we would like to partner and collaborate with you. One of the things that we pointed out in the meeting from a financial perspective, just as a friendly reminder to the county is receiving $175 million. And granted, we're receiving almost $14 million. So our proportion is about 8 cents on the dollar, if you will. So, that's kind of the level of partnership that maybe I was thinking about, so that we could get more in return than maybe what we're given financially, just because the county is getting so much money. They're getting $175 million. And then on top of that, pretty much on a daily, if not a weekly basis, we're finding out about all these other programs that are coming down through the state or directly through the federal government again. So having the opportunity to collaborate as a county, I think, is a good thing.
Anything further, Mr. Caulfield?
So you want me to come back next Monday regarding whether or not you want to partner with the county, Mayor, or hold off on that?
Well, partner with the county generally on a specific program, policy. Oh, I'd take input from council.
Well, I'm certainly fine and think it's even a good idea for the city manager to actively explore with the county opportunities to work with them. Knowing that we're not particularly committing to a specific one until things like that, but we can start talking so that we can see what's possible.
Okay.
Also at the county level, SHAPE, SSHAP, the steering committee met, I understand, sometime late last week. I will forward information regarding that later this week. The Pierce County executive, the Tacoma mayor, and another mayor, I believe the mayor of Orting, would like to meet with this body to talk about the ILA, the draft ILA that they have, and specifically some of the questions and comments that Lakewood sent back. And we have identified June 28th, your study session later on this month, as a date for them to come and meet with you regarding that. Next week is you have a very full agenda. That doesn't work. But June 28th is a date that does. So unless there's any objection from the council, actually I've already extended the invitation. So if you'd like me to unextend the invitation, I could certainly do that. I haven't heard back from them yet. But if I don't hear any objection, I'll proceed. I'll proceed with that. Also, just a quick updates. Western State Hospital, actually DSHS has submitted a master facilities plan for the hospital that we have deemed complete. Long story short, we are now moving forward with the public comment period, which actually kicked off today and will run through July 7th. And as you know, we have a separate standalone webpage dedicated just for that. And we also sent out notices within 1,000 feet of the hospital. And the reason we used 1,000 feet is because the facility is so big, going out 300 feet doesn't even get you off the hospital. So we went further out into the neighborhood to get the notifications and direct mailings out and such. Also, we continue to work with our federal delegation regarding a funding for transportation funding for medium-sized cities. That is something that Congressman Larson is taking on. And we actually have a draft letter of support that right now we have 28 cities from Washington State and Oregon within the population of 10 to 75,000 that have signed on to that. So we're working with that. Also, we heard from Congresswoman Strickland's office earlier today that our $2.4 million ask that she has sponsored and that both of our senators are supporting for South Tacoma Way between 80th and 88th is officially in the Invest in America Act, which came out of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee late on Friday or sometime this weekend. So our $2.4 million ask is in there. Also, another item that for a number of years that cities, including Lakewood, have been very vocal about is the federal monies that come down to the MPOs, in our case, PSRC, they be increased. And right now, PSRC gets 55% of the federal monies for distribution within its 4-county area. The new Invest in America Act increases that from 55% to 60%. So over the 5 years of this new act, that's tens of millions of dollars that will come to PSRC that will actually also benefit us because there'll be more money that we'll be able to, there'll be more money to apply for and more projects that will get funded. The farmers market, if you haven't been down there, is doing absolutely phenomenal. Ms. Dodsworth and Ms. Martinez are just really knocking it out of the park. So after the first 2 weeks, sales have almost doubled from last year. And by the way, last year, the 2-week sales had already been up 17% over the first 2 weeks from 2019. And 2019 had been up about 10%. So we continue to see significant growth and activity at our farmers market. And then lastly, we are going to have a National Night Out. And it's, as you know, it's the first Tuesday in every August. This year it's August 3rd. And we currently have 7 events, 7 neighborhoods that have signed up to sponsor events. And we're going to put, if it's not already in your calendar, it will be. And if you'd like to ride along with a police officer, let us know. I know a number of you in the past have done that, and there'll be a sign-up sheet that will be available. And I think we'll kick off as early as 5 o'clock on Tuesday, the August 3rd. So just wanted to share that news with you as well. So that's what I had, man.
Any questions for the city manager? And we'll move to council comments. Ms. Farmer.
I wanted to request that the council consider 2 proclamations for June. The first would recognize June as Pride Month, and the second would proclaim June 19th as Juneteenth. If there's any other interest in that.
Aren't we already doing the June 19th? I thought we had decided on that. I'm not sure. We had not.
Deputy Mayor Whalen, that is actually an item for discussion as part of your June 28th study session.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. City Manager, I did get a call from Miss Candy Westless, and she's asking for collaboration with Tacoma at Wrights Park. And she was going to give me a call back and give me some more details, but that was a request. No answer did I give her.
You said that, City Manager, you said that that was in the study session. That wouldn't that be after the actual date?
Yes, and if I,
Councilmember Bell, yeah,
Ms.
the
Walker.
purpose of the study session is different. The purpose of the study session is for the city to recognize Juneteenth as an official legal holiday in Lakewood. It's completely different from a proclamation that Councilmember Farmer is asking.
Okay.
yes, and I just wanted to clarify for the council, when the legislature put this out there, the timing of it is such that the state law doesn't take effect until after the Juneteenth holiday. So we can do a proclamation in terms of recognizing it along with the state as a true holiday. Our timing is consistent with what the state's done. The law didn't take immediate effect. There's a little lag time before the state law makes it an official holiday. So when this is being brought to you, you will be able to have official Juneteenth consistent with what state law allows. There won't be any lag there. The proclamation is a way of recognizing it independent of what the state's authorized.
Exactly. And I was thinking of this, for example, we set a precedent in November of last year when we proclaimed November as Native American Heritage Month. So I did a quick Google search tonight, and almost every city in the South Sound has these two proclamations going. So I would really like to see us do the same thing.
I would agree with Councilmember Farmer on that.
I'm fine with that.
That would only takes two to get it on the agenda, so it is.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Ms. Bell,
I am good, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bulking, Ms. Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just briefly wanted to say that it was nice to see that we have our service club signs up. They look very nice up on Bridgeport Way. I did attend the Memorial Day service last week, and Councilmember Branstad did an excellent job in introductions for the city of Lakewood. So thank you, Mike. And I did attend the memorial service today for Major General Hemphill, and it was well done. So that's all I have.
Mr. Branstad.
Yes, I also attended General Hemphill's memorial service and was, you know, he is someone that you would almost never meet without him asking you to do something that was worth doing, and he is going to be missed by JBLM and Steilacoom and Lakewood in the area. The city manager mentioned that we're going to actually be able to do some face-to-face national night outs, and asked about riding and going to those events with a police officer. I, for one, in the past have never chosen to do that because I kind of like to make my own schedule and go around, and we've had about 20 of them. But I think that this year is a year when maybe we should each consider riding with a police officer. And while that's fine, it shows us and gets us out into the community, I think that will say something to the police officers who are, while they feel that we support them, I think that's a way that we can do something that it benefits both ways. So I will definitely ride with the police officer on National Night Out this year, and I would encourage the others of you to consider it. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Whalen.
Well, I too want to sign up for National Night Out, Mr. Caulfield. So if you want to connect me with an officer, I would love to go along that night. And in line with that, there was, I know the chief sent out a write-up that's going to go in the Suburban Times about community policing. There was a fantastic program on, I think it was CBS Good Morning or CBS Sunday Morning this last Sunday about the state of policing in America. And I mentioned that to the chief too. So if it's a chance to pull it up from your DVR or Xfinity or whatever it is as a recorded program, it was really, really well done. And it kind of explains many different perspectives about the nature of community policing. So I, for one, want to be supportive, and I look forward to riding at National Night Out. In terms of other community things, I attended the Lakewood Rotary online auction. It used to be that it was Sportsman's Dinner in years past where we all enjoyed having time together, but the virtual thing seems to be in line with this year. They beat their goal of 40,000 by about 4. So I think they raised about 44 to 45,000 for the community. So really great turnout, and you can expect those funds will be invested back in our community in the next year. So hats off to Rotary. That's it.
Thank you. Well, this was JBLM week for me. On Wednesday, I attended the First Corps relinquishment of responsibility, which is the first half of a change of command, essentially, for the commanding general. General George was summoned to Washington, D.C. early on very short notice to be the senior military assistant to the Secretary of Defense. Quite an important position, and they don't have his replacement named as of today. General Burleson, who had just changed out as the commanding general of the 7th Infantry Division, was stopped in his moving efforts, packing, and told he was going to stay around here to be Deputy Commanding General of First Corps and interim Commanding General. So the change was only half completed. On June 4th, on Friday, City Manager and I attended the Starker Brigade change of command. And likewise, Colonel Chung, who I think is going to be Brigadier General Chung in the near future, is not leaving the area. He's staying for another command here on post. And along with council members Branstetter and Moss, I attended Major General Helmfield's memorial service today. Truly amazing man, who usually started any conversation he had with me by saying, here's what you need to do. And as Mr. Branstetter indicated, it was always something worthwhile, and you always felt compelled to listen and to try to follow his orders, although they were always delivered in a very gentlemanly manner. Truly a great American. Is there anything further to come before us? Then we are adjourned. See you next week.
Hi, everybody.